Hello, and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the start of Season 2 of the Assetto Corsa Competizione European GT3 Series, as brought to you by NXTGEN Racing in collaboration with the SimGrid and Coach Dave Academy. I appreciate you've had to wait some time for this season to get underway, but we're finally here, we're finally live on the PC instance of ACC, and goodness we have got plenty of racing ahead of us tonight. Now, of course, our schedule here is a little bit out of position, but what you can imagine is originally we were going to have all the drivers briefing here, have qualifying commence and the race start all according to the schedule, but what I can tell you is we will be very shortly cutting over to qualifying, which will be the 15-minute qualifying session, and then straight after that we'll be going into the race. It will still be a 75-minute feature race, and then we will be proceeding to post-race podium interviews. That will mean, of course, that we are running behind schedule right now. We're running behind schedule by approximately 25 minutes, so if you take all the times here and move them by 25 minutes, then you're going to have an accurate picture of where we're going to be. There'll be no live drivers briefing tonight, and indeed we're going to need to skip through a number of things because qualifying will be getting underway within the next 4 to 5 minutes. In the commentary box tonight, you've got myself, Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and if not, the technical issues with Assetto Corsa Competitione's servers were not enough. I believe we are also experiencing some technical issues right now with the Facebook broadcast. So as a result, this service tonight, this broadcast will be available on both the official NXTGEN Racing YouTube and also on the official Twitch channel of my own, which is TX141 on Twitch. So there'll be two media you can follow the stream on tonight. It's either the NXTGEN YouTube or my own Twitch at TX141. But as we now come on to our sponsors here, our two key sponsors for this series, we start off with the SimGrid, of course, introducing our senior partner here. And the SimGrid, in short, for those who are out to know, is a place for amateur and professional sim racers to compete against fellow drivers in leagues and endurance events for Assetto Corsa Competizione. And we're very grateful to have them on board. Indeed, one of their senior stewarding staff join us in the stewarding team today, and I believe join us throughout the season. And we've also got Coach Dave Academy supported us. Coach Dave Academy, of course, the home of amateur and professional sim racers looking to up their game through coaching, setups and track maps. Now, with Coach Dave Academy supported us, they have provided a significant number of prizes towards the prize pool for this series, and I believe at the end of each race, whoever the race winner is, they can win themselves a Coach Dave Academy setup for a car of their choosing. As well as for our top 5 finishers, there will be Coach Dave Academy setups being awarded to our top 5 finishers come the end of the championship. Now, speaking of the championship, here is our calendar. It's an 8-round calendar which starts today at Donington Park in the United Kingdom as of the 7th of September 2021. And you can see over the course of 8 weeks of racing, we will conclude things with the Super Endurance event at the Nürburgring on the 26th of October 2021. All of our races, of course, being held on Tuesdays at the same time without any delays. Of course, we had the delays today, but that's by the by now. And as for our drivers today, we can see we have got a total of 39 entrants as it currently stands into the series, but we are potentially expecting even more drivers to join us as of round 2 and onwards, and we can see some returning names there and also some new names. The returnees, for example, we've got Brandon Warren there, this time bringing the Nissan GTR Nismo. We've also got the likes there of Gareth Mills, or Millsy as his friends like to call the South African driver, bringing the McLaren 720S, and as you look down as well, you can see Jesse Monroe's there bringing the BMW M6, and Adrian Neisinger as well, switching away from the BMW M6 after Season 1 and bringing the Aston Martin Racing V8 Vantage tonight. But we also need to say hello to some new drivers as well. For example, there we've got Tom Gander, who was one of our spectators as a Season 1, bringing the Ferrari 488 Evo. And as we switch over to our second list of our 39 drivers here, we can see a good scattering of car choices here, although we do have quite a few McLaren 720S drivers there on the second chart in this GT3 series. We've got Kieran Prendergast, of course, in the Ferrari 488 Evo, and we've got also Marco Ciccini in the McLaren 720S there. And Ollie Moss, another McLaren driver there, and a new name for many around the standings today. Now, of course, with it being at the season open, we have no championship standings to go through, but what we can do is talk about the track. Tonight, we are going racing at Donington Park, located in Leicestershire in England, and the track map here provided by Scott Mansell from Driver61.com. We're very grateful to the information provided by the Driver61 team, particularly Scott Mansell, and you can see here, consisting of 11 or 12 corners, depending on how you define the S's, whether it's one corner or two, but a very tricky chicane there. But plenty of legendary corners here and legendary parts of the circuit, which have seen plenty of battles throughout series where it's British touring car all the way up to the GT3 category and the GT World Challenge over the course of the years. And what with the fact that we do have here, we'll be classifying the S's as one single corner here today, our 11 corners, which starts off at the Wheatcroft Straight and makes it all the way round to Goddard's Hairpin at turn number 11. As for our rules today, we can see that we have had one or two changes compared to last year. The two key changes: the balance of performance used for all cars featured in this series shall be the base 2020 variant, as brought to you by the Assetto Corsa Competizione base sim racing game. And on top of that, in terms of our races, whereas previously we had the mandatory pit stop, which required fuel to be taken on board and a tyre change, now it's the case that fuel must be taken on board, 1 litre minimum, but our drivers can choose whether they want to change tyres. So they can go a whole race with just a single set of tyres, or they can spend that extra time in the pits, putting on a fresh pair and going for the new rubber. And on top of that as well, we've decided to move away from the defined pit window of 10 minutes, separating the middle point of the race. Instead, now, drivers may choose when to pit as soon as they desire to. So they could literally pit after lap 1, or they can decide to pit at the very end. They must do the pit stop, but now they have greater flexibility, and that could open up the pit strategy somewhat, particularly on those circuits where it's very difficult to overtake and our drivers end up in traffic. Now, I should point out that qualifying has already got underway, so we are now very shortly going to hop to the live show here in order to see what's happening right now, and I believe we just need to get some of that data off our screen here as qualifying is a go, go, go. And as we do so, we can see here we've got a number of our drivers already out of the circuit trying to get themselves warmed up and get the best possible qualifying laps in where they can. We've got 13.5 minutes still of qualifying to go, so we've come in at the perfect time here, of course, with there being no drivers briefing, and all of our drivers making their way around the circuit here, trying to get the best possible result they can in qualifying and line themselves up well. And Donington, quite a tight circuit, indeed one of those circuits whereby our drivers will need to do everything they possibly can in order to give themselves a good qualifying position, because if they do not, it could be the case that they find themselves in the end getting stuck in traffic, and that could cause them some major pain and inconvenience when they go racing. But as we see there, we've got all the data up on screen for you right now, and we've got 20, I believe it is 23 up to 26 drivers taking to the circuit. In fact, it's 29 out of our 39 taking to the circuit today, as we just move some of the logos around for you, so that way you're able to see all the data and also the wonderful advertising logos of our sponsors here, who without them we would not be able to bring you all the racing action, and all of our drivers are out on circuit. As we say hello to Zoronic in the Twitch chat right now, we hope you're doing well, Zoronic, and to all of you tuning in, you guys and girls, do let us know who you're tuning in to support, if you're supporting anyone, or what your expectations are for the racing tonight. And as I say, we are trying to bring you everything up to speed as quickly as possible. But right now, everybody just getting themselves set there. As we see Cedaw here, Lucas Cedaw, the Polish driver, just making his way there out of the first of the two hairpin style corners. Not the old hairpin, the newer hairpins compared to the old hairpin at turn 4, as he makes his way through turn 11 right now and comes around through Gollards to complete an opening flying lap, we believe here, and he's going to be the first one to set the pace as he makes his way across that timeline. A 126.9 there, and not too bad a lap, but Kieran Pendergast immediately going faster. And then we can see it is the BP Racing driver in P2 currently, as Harry Phillips goes even faster in the Bentley there. But then as all the times come in, you can imagine a lot of drivers will be putting in the times, as Harry Phillips from Cohesion Motorsport there with a good lap, only 300ths or 400ths of Andres Mesa, who has briefly taken provisional pole here. The distinct GG driver, the Spaniard, making his way right now down through the Craner curves up towards the old hairpin as he goes through turn 3 and heads up into turn 4, the old hairpin, as he sweeps his way through it right now. And in that Aston Martin AMR V8 Vantage, what Andres was saying to me going into the racing tonight was the fact that really looking forward to it, but on top of that, more importantly for him, as I just bring up my notes from my pre-race discussion with him, I had the chance to catch up to him, is that he's not a big fan of the track itself. He finds it's a bit of an average circuit for him, but the difference is he has to be very careful not to go off track, as the tyre pressure loss is quite significant at Donington Park. And what are his goals and expectations? I was asking a number of drivers what they're expecting with regards to this season, in terms of whether their season performance or what they're looking to get out of the season, and Mesa was saying to me that he's new to the league and he barely knows any of the drivers, so it's going to be difficult to tell, but he'd like to think he can be up there. And indeed, from what we saw the distinct GG drivers in Season 1, particularly Ethan Faulkner, who of course we have got the return of Ethan Faulkner, the Ferrari driver, coming back to the circuit as well. And we also had Ben Walker there, who's not returning this season as I understand it, but both of them putting in very solid performances. And will Andres be able to mimic the performances of his teammates? I'm sure they will, as I do believe we do have some members of Distinct GG tuning in, Distinct Finn, I should say, in particular, supporting them there in the YouTube chat. But what also Andreas was saying to me is that with regards to choosing this car, he finds that the Aston has been a car he's been driving for quite a while, and he feels very comfortable in it, and he doesn't need that much practice to be consistent. He already feels as though he's got it nailed down, and we can see right now he has set provisional pole of a 26.1 at 3.5 tenths clear of Harry Phillips right now, but we still do have 10 minutes of the qualifying session to go. And meanwhile, we can see here the fellow distinct GG driver of Ethan Faulkner, the Irishman here, very fast, very agile in that Ferrari, and he has been the driver who you could argue was plagued with bad luck and misfortune over the course of Season 1, but will he be able to turn things around tonight at the start of Season 2? I think for the Irishman, he would love to get out the gates very rapidly here and try to get the best possible result, so that way he can go hunting later into the season for those potential championship points that take him to the wings. He was really coming live in the second half of Season 1, but tonight it all starts over again. Everybody with a clean slate, of course, and they all go racing once more. But as we take a look a little bit further down the order, we can see, of course, Adrian Loisinger here in the Dream Pace race machine here, the Aston Martin AMR Aston Martin Racing V8 Vantage here, just making its way through the old hairpin right now. The Swiss driver flying through with the wonderful horse on the side of the vehicle, of course. Very distinct livery there from Loisinger as he makes his way through. He's got a little bit of traffic though in this current qualifying lap. He's 2 seconds over the lead pace right now, as we do hear that Harry Phillips has actually just increased the provisional pole time to a 26.097. He is only a tiny bit ahead, 200s ahead of Andres Mesa, as we see Loisinger making his way around the circuit right now. And another driver who we should take our eyes over to will be the driver of Gareth Mills here, as he makes his way across that timing line, the South African driver from GM Racing there, back with a vengeance, of course, here in the McLaren 720S. He's moved away from what he brought last time, which was, if I remember correctly, the Audi R8, and as he surges his way down the hill right now through the Craner curves here, we can see building up a good amount of speed down towards the old hairpin, but he's got quite a bit of traffic ahead of him, and he will need to navigate that, as we do see there the pink Lamborghini, which is just making its way around as well, and I believe that is one of a very limited number of Lamborghinis at the series as it currently stands, and that is Timofeo, who's making his way right now around, and he's going underneath the bridge, and as he comes up through turns 5 and 6 and into 7, you can see here just flying through, and a very, very notable car there. Pink Lamborghini, I wouldn't have thought we would have seen it, but it does remind me of a song from a movie a little while ago, but I think the colour there was purple rather than pink, as he makes his way now on to the back straight here and heads down towards the chicane, going through turn 9 very shortly. Affair here just surging down, as we do have some blue flags being waved right now, and while those blue flags right in the way of our cameraman, as we see he makes his way down towards what is now the turn 10 hairpin. Surging now, we can see the rubber being laid down as well, and for those wondering about our track conditions at the moment, we can see the track at the moment optimum in the top right corner of your screen. We've got quite a lot of cloud over the circuit and a track temperature of 28 degrees centigrade, 21 local in the atmosphere there, and a small amount of wind picking up as well. But one of the biggest questions over our drivers here is the fact that we do have quite an odd forecast. We've got a little bit of weather randomness, and drivers may be wondering if we're going to see any rain at all. Fingers crossed not. Hopefully it will stay dry, but if we do see some rain, it could really mix things up, particularly in the race. The Farah comes across the line there and does not set a time so far, but flashing his lights here, and I do think that's trying to get the signal through. I think that they're coming out of the pits was Harry Phillips, just trying to get the signal through to him that he was coming charging through like a bull. As we do see now, we've got Robert Velkovsky turning up at the circuit as well, so we're up to 31 of our 39 drivers. We do have a couple who weren't able to make it tonight, and Velkovsky back, of course, the German driver from Back to Motion, bringing once again the Porsche 911. Very strong driver, very strong car, and really battling in the midfield last time out in Season 1, and he will be looking to do everything he can in order to be able to improve upon last season. But meanwhile, going from old comers to newcomers here, we do have Emil Blaine here, the NRT and Nordic Racing Team driver there, going through the turn 10 hairpin. And Emil, as I was catching up with him down in the paddock as he was getting ready to go racing, he was saying that he really enjoys racing at Donington. He's excited for tonight. He's really excited for this season. He really enjoys the Craner curves down towards the old hairpin. A nice section, but it's definitely not his strongest track. So he enjoys the circuit, but he's not too strong at it. And we can see that with his opening lap time there of a 29.181, putting him down in P29 provisionally for the time being, but he may have a little bit more pace to leverage out on circuit. With regards to his expectations for this season, he doesn't know what to expect, other than he's not going to be the fastest, and he thinks he'll be able to answer that question a little bit better after the race. But his goal is to be the best he can, and whilst he has been struggling recently with his mental health, he feels as though taking part in this series and getting into a rhythm of racing is going to bring him back a lot of confidence in his life, and he will be able to get better. And he is getting better right now, and I think the excitement of going racing tonight was something that's really been making him feel upwards in his spirits right now, and that is great to hear. Every so often we need that little bit of mental injection of positivity, and for Blaine, he's definitely got that here. As for why he chose the Aston Martin, well, why wouldn't you, he says. Joking aside, he's always loved the car, and he loved Astons in general, and he thinks they're some of the most beautiful cars out there. And by far, it's the car he knows best, and he really feels he can trust the handling of it. And he does look very composed in the number 664 car right now, as he makes his way through the chicane, of course, and heads down towards the turn 10 hairpin. So, charging down there right now, as he makes his way. He's got a little bit of traffic ahead of him right now, and I believe that is Ethan Faulkner just ahead of him right now, and he'll be flashing his lights to say to Ethan, if you politely move out the way, and Ethan does so very respectfully there, as we do see just behind Emil there, we have got Harry Phillips, who's just following in behind right now, and I believe Faulkner there has had to take evasive action at the last possible minute as everybody's coming through. Faulkner being caught out there by a little bit of a traffic flow coming through, and we can see that Phillips going deep as we do have a McLaren coming through, and I believe that is not Ollie Moss, as we have got Ollie Moss somewhere down in the pit lane, and there he is, the British driver from Volante Aztec Sim Sports, and as he waits to go once again here, just he's provisional P8 right now with a 26.865. They're doing a little bit of work on the car, we can see, and he's just come off the jacks there, going once again with 4.5 minutes of this session to go. We can see some drivers in the pits just getting final bits there. Jesse Monrose as well, he's just gone past him in the pit lane. But as we continue to look around the circuit, we've got Anthony Brown here, the Code Brown driver. That's the team name, of course, and I'm hoping that that's in reference to a potential Code Brown moment. For those of you who don't know, I'm not going to utter what a Code Brown moment means in the chat or on this live stream. You'll have to look it up yourselves, but it is a little bit of a racing joke with regards to when things go a bit wrong and you have a major mistake that may scare you. That's probably the best way to describe a Code Brown without going into too much graphical detail. Let's keep it PG where we can, folks. Now, as we see him making his way right now through the chicane, of course, in provisional P10 right now of a 26.958 and doing a good job as it currently stands. Now, we should very briefly just hop over to another one of our newcomers today, and I believe that is Lucas Cedaw, who you can see here. We mentioned him a little bit earlier, the Polish driver in the Ferrari, currently provisional P4. And the reason I want to just quickly come back to Lucas in particular is the fact, as you see on the side of the car there, you can see a web address there, a Polish web address on the side. Well, just to point out for you, and I'm going to be posting a link in the chat very shortly. He is racing to raise money for a local young girl in his community, Olga Mikiewicz, who is suffering from spinal muscular atrophy. And if you'd like to know more about the cause that Lucas is racing for, then please check out the link which I've just posted in the chat. And that way you can find out more about what he's doing. And some drivers, of course, loving to race for their local charities and doing everything they can. Of course, that cause is independent of NXTGEN Racing TV, but we do like to bring exposure to what drivers race for, particularly when they're racing for charities or racing for their family or for their friends. And we can see it's great here, and the Ferrari driver definitely pumped up right now as he makes his way through the turn 10 hairpin. And I should point out, with regards to when I caught up with him earlier, he was telling me about the cause and also about his feelings for tonight. With regards to the Donington circuit, Donington, a very tricky track, need to be on guard every lap, because on a few corners one mistake can ruin a whole race or get you a drive-through penalty. And for him, saving tyres for 75 minutes will be the hardest thing tonight. He doesn't know what strategy is going to be chosen by himself tonight, but he's still thinking about strategy. But he does enjoy driving at Donington, that's the thing. So he finds it a bit of an oddball circuit. He likes driving at it, but it's a very difficult circuit, I should say. As for his expectations this season, well, he only started sim racing in January this year. He's raced in many series, but higher to level competition, he's still very fresh and green. And on the few tracks he does have more experience, such as Brands Hatch and Silverstone, where he has no experience, however. So he'll be trying to do his best to keep up with the pace, but really this is all about just getting into the swing of things. And as for the reason why he chose the Ferrari, he just feels very comfortable in the Ferrari. He tried a number of cars, he felt he was equally fast at Donington in the BMW M6 and the Porsche, but at Donington he had to pick the best car for the whole series, and that was the Ferrari 488 Evo. And that's why he's gone with it, as he makes his way onto the back straight right now. And as this qualifying session is coming to a close with 1.5 minutes remaining, everybody will be going in for their last possible lap times right now. We can see that the best lap set so far is by Andres Mesa, the distinct GG driver, the Spaniard here, doing a very good job as he makes his way down towards the chicane here on a 25.9. And as a result, he's looking strong for pole right now. He's got a 2/10 advantage over Harry Phillips. But let's not count out Harry Phillips, who, as he makes his way down towards the old hairpin here, we can see the Bentley driver looking very in cohesion, I was just about to say, but then he went a little bit wide there. But the cohesion SimSport driver doing a good job right now and really competing for that front row, at least if not the front 2 rows of this grid, as he makes his way charging around the circuit right now. And as we check in with you guys and girls once again here with regards to any sort of stewarding or any major announcements, there's nothing at the moment. As we check in the chat, nothing from you guys and girls. Don't be shy, feel free to say hi. But we can see here that Phillips doing everything he can in order to try and get the best possible lap whilst there's time remaining out on circuit. And I think, based on the pace he's moving at right now, he may squeeze in one more lap as Mesa does improve a little bit further. Now 2 attempts clear completely, and then 7 thousandths to add with it. And what can Phillips do here as we see him make his way right now down towards the final set of corners here, going through the turn 10 hairpin right now, and he's got one more corner ahead of him as he flows out of there. And if he's absolutely able to nail this, it's going to work out very much. Going through Melbourne and up into Gollards right now, and as he comes into the final corner, he's got some yellow flags ahead of him to deal with, but I think a driver's probably had a run off, and those flags will clear as we see he comes out that final corner, and he will cross that timeline to go on to one more lap just about. And as he comes through here, is it an improvement from Phillips? It is not, so he goes once again here, and I believe it's going to be the case that for Andres Mesa right now, he's going to be feeling very confident he's got this. Meanwhile, in P3, I should tell you, you've got Kieran Prendergast here from BP Racing, the Ferrari driver, putting in a very solid performance in the number 24 car. Only 3 tenths off a pole right now and flying around the circuit. Indeed, his last couple of laps have been warm-up laps. I think he's on his final qualifying lap as it currently stands, as we see a lot of our drivers making their way to the pit. But Prendergast continuing on his merry way right now as he makes his way out of turn 7 and through 8. As he comes through the right hand, he's now got the long run down towards the chicane at turn number 9 here, as he makes his way all the way down. And we've still got that maximum wait time, of course, over 1 minute 20, while drivers are on their final laps right now, as we do see the checkered flag is being pulled out as Mesa does pull into the pits here. So he thinks he's got it done, the Spaniard. We will wait and see here. What can Prendergast do as he makes his way down towards the Melbourne hairpin as he comes into turn 10. Goes heavy on the brakes here, of course. A heavy braking zone. Donington, one of those odd tracks, we've got a lot of straights and heavy braking zones, but you've also got some medium speed apexes, so it's a real case of balancing that downforce out. And as we see him make his way into the final corner here, will Prendergast be able to jump his way a little bit further up the order, or will it be a bridge too far for him as he makes his way out? Then we're waiting to see whether our timing screens get updated with improved time, and he does improve to P2. Now, how will Harry Phillips respond here as he makes his way out the final corner? Can the Bentley driver get himself back onto the front row? And he does, just creep back in by the tiniest of margins there. A brilliant rivalry forming between Phillips and Prendergast already for that front row, and Phillips takes it by 200ths in the end. We'll be right back, ladies and gentlemen, to get ready to go racing. So as we come back to our live screens for you, ladies and gentlemen, we can see right now everybody getting ready to race. But Andres Mesa taking the opening pole position of the series there with a very good lap. The Aston Martin driver feeling very strong, but he has got Harry Phillips alongside him. And we do know in the drag race, the Bentley loses out a little bit in the top end, but it's a very strong and stable car. And I do think that Phillips will be looking to exploit that over the distance of the race. But the Aston Martin is no slouch either, as we are just waiting for that countdown now to go racing. That countdown's almost complete already, as we can see that timers coming down. But as we briefly look on board a little bit further back right now, we've got Tom Gander here further down the order in at P12, as we see the Briton here from tganderservices.com representing his own personal company here, recently having worked on a design for his own sim racing cockpit, if you will, or sim racing chair and setup, and he was very proud that he was telling me all about it and all the hard work that's gone into the craft. And when I briefly spoke to Gander, as we'll see Andres Mesa take us away with the rolling start, I was speaking to Gander about his expectations and whatnot going into tonight. And say he absolutely loves Donington, with it being a very flowy circuit with a dose of anxiety thrown in. He's ridden it in real life on a Yamaha R1 once in someone else's leather and boots for a session, and the old hairpin is somehow the best corner in the world, but also the worst. But staying away from the worst right now, we can see everybody lining up for the manual double file rolling start, as it is Andres Mesa who takes us away and rolls us around. And coming back to Gander briefly here, as we can see, just making his way around on the circuit right now, and we look inboard with the driver. One of the other things he's saying, he's not looking to embarrass himself over the course of this series, a come in last type thing. He's not great at starts or pit stops, but he'd like to think he's mindful of the ability of other drivers. He will not fight someone unless they're consistently faster than him, and vice versa. He expects the same of other drivers. And with regards to his choice of car, he started ACC recently to get used to the types of cars. He did his testing at Brands and Mazzano and found that the Ferrari was the car for him, so that's why he's in the Ferrari here. But meanwhile, as we look back to the exterior cameras right now, we can see everybody just making their way around the circuit and proceeding all the way around, and we can see that we do have a number of BMW drivers. And I must admit, if you're looking for somebody who's an absolute fan of the BMW M6 as the camera pans around there for Max Maliar from the Jochen powered by BMW team, the German driver here, of course, one of two drivers from the Jochen Schweizer, I should say, getting my pronunciation correct. Jochen Schweizer team powered by BMW, one of two drivers from that team. And when we were talking to their drivers earlier, what they were saying is with regards to really looking forward to going racing tonight, and it is one of those cases. Well, particularly Max, he was saying it's the first time he's ever raced at Donington in the BMW, or in general. The course is tough and offers a broad variety of challenges with a fast first sector, the elevation changes, blind corners and hairpins. Setting up the car is going to make the difference. And one other thing he was saying as well is with regards to this season, him and his teammate Ralph, and if you're wondering who Ralph is when we talk about Ralph in particular, well, I do believe Ralph has managed to out-qualify me as he's in P5. That's Ralph Piringer, and that is the second Jochen Schweizer powered by BMW drivers here. The 405 cars, they're 404 and 405 in particular. They're fairly new to ACC, so they're aiming to gain experience as a result of this championship. They've come over from Assetto Corsa, the base game, of course, from Assetto Corsa to Assetto Corsa Competizione. And they chose the BMW because it's one of the team's partners. It's as simple as that. And they're also looking forward to the BMW M4 GT3 that's meant to be coming to ACC as of 2022. But away from looking forward and back to the present, it's now as they make their way up towards Goddard's here. It's going to be Andres Mesa who gradually clusters the field together, and we are going to go racing as they come out of the final hairpin. But it's down to the Spaniard to take us away. And we're green and we're going racing, and immediately the Aston Martin driver getting a good start, but we can see the Bentley driver Phillips, they're trying to get on the inside as we look a little bit further down. They all come into turn one, and it's Prendergast who really goes for an early move versus Phillips, catches Phillips slouching, in fact, as we see a number of drivers going wide there, and a BMW coming surging through, and I do believe that is the BMW of Piringer, who's already up into P3 and is on a mission as Phillips has lost down. We've got multiple cars going off circuit there in a spin, and that looked as though that was, I believe, that was a Ferrari they're going spinning. We have got a lot of cars off circuit right now. It's been absolute carnage coming down through the crane of curves on lap number one as more cars are getting caught up in all the incident there, and as a result right now it has been a disastrous start for so many different drivers here as we see a McLaren making their way out of the old hairpin and underneath the bridge, rally crossing its way back onto the circuit, the blue McLaren there that's made it back on safely. But what a dramatic start to the racing here at Donington as they make their way now out of the bridge and out on turn 7 and down towards turn 8 right now, and as all the drivers come surging up the hill here, it is the case they all start to come down a little bit as we see Parison just make, and I think, oh goodness me, we've got two cars off here at Ferrari, and also we've got the Mercedes here of Martin Parison as they make their way across, and the SKM AMG racing driver here having a disastrous start to his proceedings down into P20, I believe that's P28, as he's then got the Porsche of what is Volkowski coming through. It has been a dramatic start, but meanwhile up front as they make their way into what is Goddard's corner here, you can see it's Kieran Prendergast who's taken the lead on the opening lap. The Ferrari driver has made his way through. We're waiting for our time screens to update, but he's taken lead. So after one lap, it's Prendergast leading from Mesa, followed by Harry Phillips. Then it's Ralph Pringer in P4, followed by Marcus Fox a little bit further back. Fox has come all the way up through the field from approximately P15. He's up into P5 as the Austrian, as the number 67 driver makes his way through turn 1. Then we've got Andrej Jacqueline in at P6 right now. The Slovakian driver there, I believe that's the Slovakian flag or the Slovenian flag. You have to correct me, my geography's not great. Making his way down through the crane of curves right now in P6. Then we've got Ethan Faulkner in P7 right now. And I think Faulkner was involved in quite a bit of the cluster early on, but he's managed to survive it somehow, the Irishman in P7. And then we've got Daniel Korowski in P8, the McLaren driver, making his way right now underneath the bridge as he heads all the way through, and he's in P8. And then we've got Chris Wall in P9, and then we've got Lucas Cedaw there, the Polish driver, up into P10. With all the dramatics at the start here, you can imagine that a lot of drivers will find themselves out of position as we see Ollie Moss tucked in behind, but meanwhile Cedaw going for the move there, up into turn 8, he's on the inside, and he's battling of course there with the Bentley of Chris Wall as they make their way out of turn 8 and head down towards the chicane at turn 9. But look at how Ollie Moss has got the slipstream on the pair of them, he's got the better run as they come surging down towards the chicane here. I think that Moss is going to make one move, but if he makes two, it's going to be very risky as they come into the heavy braking zone. He tries to stay there, but he falls out in the end, realising there's no way through. There's only one way through the corner, and it's Moss up into what is P10, but meanwhile Cedaw holds on to P9 for the time being. Both drivers making a lot of moves early on as we see an Aston Martin there, that's Emil Blaine, making his way through onto turn number 10. He's on the inside here of what is Chris Wall. It's a drag race now up towards Gollard's corner at turn 11, but it looks as though the Bentley driver just got a little bit of a run. But we can see Blaine going for the switch back to the inside here. The two of them giving one another a lot of respect, and Blaine going a little bit deep there. And there's contact and a bit of a spin as he waits to rejoin. That's very unfortunate for the NRT Nordic Racing team driver as he makes his way back onto the circuit shortly. But right now, our race leader's starting to space out a little bit, as I can tell you a lot of drivers have been very heavily affected by the race start. But Prendergast leading and starting to open up a little bit of a gap to Mesa behind, as meanwhile we've got Harry Phillips who's under increasing pressure here from what is the car of Piringer as they make their way underneath the bridge and now into turn number 7. But you can see, in fact, the BMW M6 driver falling back a little bit here. Our top 4 spacing out. And meanwhile, a bit further back, we can see that in P6, we've got Andrea Jacqueline making his way around right now. The Aston Martin driver from Food Point Racing heading up towards turn number 8. He's got Fox just ahead of him, but he's got a lot of pressure from the Irishman of Faulkner. And Faulkner trying to get a move on as soon as possible there. You can see he's all over the back. He's slithering for a move here as they make their way out towards turn number 9. Now, will he squeeze to the inside here? He's right tucked in behind the Aston Martin. I think he's going to go for it on the brakes here. He's going to go quite late, and as he comes in, it's going to be it's a simple case of done and dusted as he makes his way up into P number 5 right now and presses up towards what is turn number 10 into Melbourne Hairpin. And now the next target, it is Fox up ahead of him. So as he goes up into P6, we should say, getting our numbers incorrect there, but he's chasing after Fox right now as they make their way through. Tom Ganders into the pits. I think Tom was involved very heavily in the opening incident, which unfortunately we can't bring you a replay of due to technical limitations, but a lot of drivers being caught out right at the start with that major incident, but they all press on the same. And as we look a little bit further down the order right now, I can tell you that we have had a couple of drivers who have retired already. Well, I think we've had one driver in particular, it's Chris Humphreys, who has retired from the race due to the damage picked up on the car, and we may have 1 or 2 more as well who are stuck in the pits or potentially almost out of the race if they can't get the car repaired. But meanwhile, a bit further down in P20, I was going to say that's P24, but we've got a McLaren that's completely sideways there on the exit of the final corner. And in fact, he's up to P22. It's Ulrich here. Martin Ulrich from M Technology making his way into turn 1 right now, chasing after Affenstedt as they make their way round onto another lap here and through the Craner curves they go here. And as we ride on board with the Mercedes driver, we can see just tucking in on his roll cage here, just starting to trade in the toe of Affenstedt as they make their way into the old hairpin here. Very heavy on the brakes in that AMG, but you can see how much he's closing up as we've had one car go a little bit wide there through the old hairpin and kicking up some dust. And ahead you can see the battle starting to develop, as I believe that is a Lamborghini. Well, no, so that's another McLaren ahead. I think that's Mills battling as we jump on board with Mills and look to the exterior cameras. He's battling side by side here with Loising, who's had a poor run through 5, 6 and into 7, and it's Mills who's trying to get the move on the outside here, but he's got to be so careful because there's a huge swath of cars all trying to find their way through as they all come through 8 and down towards the chicane right now. We can see that Mills is going to have the run versus Loising. It's McLaren versus Aston Martin. It's the 2 British machines battling into the chicane, and Mills is now up into P19. He goes wide on the brakes, so he goes too deep on the brakes and has to cut the corner there, but you can see he's rejoined, but that will be a track limits warning for sure, and he'll be required to give those places back. As behind we can see here Ulrich getting through it. It's Affenstedt who's under pressure right now from Pastoris. Sylvain Pastoris on the inside right now making his return, of course, as we see the TUG ATH driver here making his way. That's TUG Affenstedt it stands for, as they make their way into what is the Gollard's corner here. And as they come down the race, we can see Mills going a little bit deep and locking up. But meanwhile, it was the case. Velkoski there, you will have missed it, but you saw Velkoski come charging through there for a move versus Pastoris. And the Porsche driver, the German, trying to do everything he can to get right back into the fight here. A lot of drivers out of position, and you do love to see them trying to come through the field, of course, if they keep it clean, as we do see Velkoski going a little bit wide there and dropping off of the exit curve of turn number 1. They've got to be very careful, particularly in those Porsches, a very sensitive car to changes in the road surface, particularly in the road camber. And as they make their way through the old hairpin once again here, you can see this lot all trying to stay nose to tail right now and battling to get themselves back into the race. Remember, we have no pit window as such. It is the case that our drivers can pit at any point in the race, and we see Mills there going for the move at the 4th shot of the camera once again versus Loising, and Loising are struggling in the run out of the old hairpin up towards turn number 7 as they now come up into 8 for another time. We can see that he's trying the same thing again, but look behind and you can see that's the case that Rainer Affenstedt right now under a lot of pressure from Velkoski, and Velkoski getting past him right now and trying to drag race his way down towards the chicane here. And we can see it's Velkoski who looks for a potential move. In fact, he goes defensive in the end versus Affenstedt, and I think it might have been the case as we see a BMW there going very deep, and that's Jesse Monrose who just went very deep on the brakes there. The Frenchman almost getting it wrong and clipping the back of Pastoris into the chicane. It's really putting up a lot of drives, really taking a lot of pressure right now as we see Christian Ablasser, the TUG Racing Esports Green Team, making his way right now through turn 10, through Melbourne Corner, and trying to get back into the fight and trying to help out his McLaren teammate from TUG as well, as they all make their way up into what is Gollard's Corner to complete their 5th tour of the circuit right now. As we look down the field, we look back up towards the front and we can see Prendergast here really running away with things right now is the Ferrari driver. He's got a 1.8 second gap to Harry Phillips, who has got himself ahead of what is a Mesa. I think Mesa's made a mistake somewhere because his lap times have really fallen down. That last lap of 28.5 for Andres Mesa, who we see here chasing after Ralph Piringer. Meanwhile, Piringer was on a 27.7 and Phillips on a 27.4. Our race leader, Prendergast, on a 26.8. Prendergast is flying. Meanwhile, the Aston Martin driver here who put the car on pole really struggling, it would seem right now, to stay in the hunt for the race lead. But of course there might be some strategy involved here. Perhaps it's the case that Mesa's running more fuel compared to the guys ahead of him. You never know, and that's what this racing will do. There will be big questions to answer on the strategic front, as we see here Mesa charging after Piringer. But behind Faulkner, now that he's got himself clear of the hunt for P5, he's got P5 and he's claimed it to himself. You can see he is starting to hunt down the leaders. His last lap at 27.2. Now that he's in clear air, he's lapping as fast, if not slightly faster than our top, well, in our top four there, the rear portion of the top four, or it'll be on that last lap. I can tell you that actually it was the case that Faulkner was a second slower than all of our top four, so it is the case right now. I think Faulkner's just making a small mistake there, but as they make their way now onto what is lap number 7, definitely the Irishman will be looking to get back into the hunt in this race. Meanwhile, a little bit further back, we can see Daniel Korowski here in P8 in the McLaren, looking very fetches, that McLaren, as he makes his way through turn number 1, and behind him you've got Fabio Kina here, the Swiss driver from the Tamir Racing team in P9 right now. Of course, we've got a McLaren out of position. I think that might be one of the cars that's already been lapped. I think it's Lara who's ahead of them right now. That would be Paco Lara. But meanwhile, Kiena under a lot of pressure, the Tamir driver, as they make their way through their chicane. In fact, well, not the chicane, the old hairpin here. The Aston Martin driver in P9, as we ride on board and look back for him, you can see you've got Anthony Brown there, just the best part of half a second behind and trying to close up under braking. The difference in the machinery here, of course, is the fact that McLaren, with a very orientated towards an aerodynamic setup, a lot of downforce on that McLaren versus the Aston Martin, which is all about that raw grunt of the V8. But you can see through the corners how Brown is able to catch up so much on Kiena, and as they make their way down towards the chicane, once again it is the case that as they get onto that straight, the Aston Martin can just open up the legs and run for it, and the McLaren's going to have to really send a move here and get a huge amount of overspeed in order to get it done. And you can see here as it's building up, and it looks as though Brown's going to look for the move down into Melbourne. Here he's going to be on the inside now. Surely Kiena's not going to turn into this one, and you can see behind them, oh goodness me, and Brown goes a bit deep. They go for the cutback here. Does Kiena, and Fabio gets it, but it's going to be a drag race now up towards turn 11, and as they both come up into the hairpin corner once again, into Gollards they go. McLaren on the inside, Aston Martin on the outside, and the McLaren's keeping the door open there to make sure the Aston Martin can't get on the power until he says so. He's allowed to do that, of course, so long as he doesn't squeeze off the track, but that's the case for Lucas Cedaw here, the Polish driver in P11. He's going to look for the move into turn 1 versus the Aston Martin, but he hasn't got it in the Ferrari there, as they make their way onto lap number 8 right now and come through to the Craner curves through turns 2 to 3 and head down towards the old hairpin at 4. Just behind them, meanwhile, you've got Tim Affair here in the Lamborghini, of course, in the Huracan Evo, making his way right now down through the Craner curves himself in P12. He's got a second gap to Trippiana, and he's 5 seconds down on that battle for what is P9, as we see here. Oh, goodness me, and Brown has had a spin on the old hairpin and moves out of the way. The British driver there having definitely a Code Brown moment as he now gets himself back up to speed, but there's a lot of cars coming through, and he's going to have to stay clear of them, as we do see there. That looks to be, well, that's not Tribbiano, that's Chris Bell from the CB Racing AMR team, making his way through turn 7 right now, and he's got a lot of pressure on has Bell. He's got Chris Wall, and he's got Martin Ulrich as well behind him. Will he be able to hold on? Of course, we see that he goes a bit deep into the corner, and he tries to recover the car, and it's just the case he gets it caught there, but very conscious of the fact that Chris Wall was trying to come through there. As the two Chris's go to war, it's Bell versus Wall, and who's going to hit the wall in terms of the braking point? Well, it's going to be Bell in the end, who runs out braking distance, and instead it's Wall who makes his way through up into P13 right now, and the Bentley driver coming back from CJW Racing, of course, his own team, as we see behind. Ulrich going for the move now versus Bell, and as they come through what is Melbourne hairpin, you can see turn 10 proving to be a very, very good overtaking spot for a lot of our drivers here, and he makes his way up into P15 using the speed of the Mercedes AMG there coming out the corner to hold on to the position, as they both come through to complete the final corner and go on to what is their 9th lap. We see there Brown coming into the pits. Brown coming in after picking up the damage from the spin, or at least taking the tyres apart. And I do think the case that this is going to be an unscheduled stop, and he'll have to turn this around into something special right now. As we look a little bit further at the front, and we can see that the battle for P3 continues, with our race leaders separated by a second each, and Phillips 2 seconds up the road from Piringer here. You can see how the Jochen driver here, powered by BMW, trying to use that M6 machinery to his advantage. And the one thing about the M6 that's going to be very difficult to beat, straight line performance. The M6 is an absolute monster on the straights, as he makes his way now down towards the Melbourne hairpin. The Aston Martin's no slouch, no doubt, but the German machine here with its V8 with the twin turbos being able to do a huge amount of work and pull distance, but we can see through the corners that's where the BMW M6 does struggle by comparison as they make their way up towards Goddard's hairpin once again here. No potential move on here, but definitely Andres Mesa trying to put the pressure on right now as Piringer holds onto his position for the time being. We do have the occasional timing glitch down on our screen. I can definitely tell you that it's Andres Mesa who is behind Piringer and not the other way round, but as they now make their way into turn number 1, it is the case that they're staying nose to tail for the time being. With 13.5 minutes of this race completed, we've still got just over an hour of racing to go. You won't want to go anywhere. There's still plenty of action ahead. I can predict it. It's not as I can see the future, but my crystal ball is definitely telling me there is going to be a lot more drama before we reach the close here. But looking a little bit further down the order right now, what I can tell you, meanwhile, all the way down in P23, we've got Emil Blaine. Once again, he's battling here side by side with Gareth Mills into the first of the 2 hairpins in the second half of the circuit. And we can see he's going for the move versus Mills. But will he be able to get it as they both go side by side up into towards Gollard's corner here? And it looks as though Blaine caught on the outside, but he sweeps around the outside. It gives space to Mills, though. He's conscious of the fact that Mills is there, and Mills will use that space to his advantage. The McLaren being strong on the accelerator coming out the corner. Also, it's got a lot of downforce to play with. And you can see Scott behind a little bit further back, but it is the case right now. Blaine holds the position. A good move there from Blaine to go up to P22 as he makes his way through the corners. And looking a little bit further up, we've got Victor Tolera here, who we haven't really talked about too much, the AF course driver, making his way through the old hairpin here. He's in P15 right now. He's just got past Faulkner, had a run wide there, and now he is chasing after Bell, who's just up the road. Chris Bell there, who fell down to wall only moments ago. He fell down to P14, of course, with the battle between the two of them, and we can see here Tolera doing everything he can and moving approximately 8 tenths of a second faster than Bell a lap at the moment. But remember, Bell has had some disrupted laps recently, and that may be the contributing factor as they now make their way down towards the chicane. As we check in with you guys and girls in the chat once more here, we can see how we have got a good number of people tuning in. We've got Chilled Nom Nom there saying that Mesa is fast. Andres Mesa is definitely very fast, but has had a difficult start. Ethan caught up in the carnage on lap 1, turn number 2. CJ Mack there, I do think he was caught up in it, but to be fair for Ethan Faulkner right now, whilst he was caught up in that carnage early on, he is making ground right now. That last lap of 27.7, our race leaders are on at 27.6s through to 27.2s. So I think Faulkner is battling against some potential damage on that car. He's trying to manage the car all the same, and this is what we did see from Faulkner in season 1. He's doing it again, this ability, this deepness where he can just dig to pull those results back out, much like what we saw from Jonathan Atkinson. Of course, he's not racing this anymore, but I think we're going to be seeing the spirit of Atkinson being representing Faulkner here, not giving up at all and continuing on his way. And there is a sizable gap between himself and P6 man, of course, Andrew Jacklin here, making his way through turn number 8 right now. But the Aston Martin driver doing a solid job of keeping distance to Marcus Fox. Fox down there in P7 in the Porsche, who we see him right now, the Austrian driver from Fox Sim Racing, making his way out of 8 and heading down towards 9. But as we look a little bit further down, we can see plenty of you talking about the race. And MRC Dan Gleeble saying, keep it going, Mr. Wall. Yep, Wall having a bit of a difficult period recently, although he is making his way out the order. And we've got a 10-second penalty being applied for Chris. Oh, goodness me! And there's just been some major contact there with a Ferrari. And oh, what on earth has happened here? We're just literally catching it. It's all kicking off there. And it looks as though Velkovsky making some contact there with what was, I believe, Tolera and Bell. But it all kicked off with a little bit of contact on the rear of Tolera's car. Now, why did that happen? I'm not 100% sure whether there was an aftermath from a corner previously, but definitely some tempers flaring there, and it's meant that Rainer Affenstadt right now, the Austrian driver here, Affenstadt I should say, being able to pick up another pair of positions. He's up into P15, and to be fair, if he's going to be given the ability to come through like that, I don't think he's going to complain right now. But I'm just going to check in with my stewardess sheet, ladies and gentlemen, with regards to what happened on the open lap. 10-second penalty to car 97, that is to Chris Bell. Appears to turn it into the car on the inside of them, even though there's plenty of space on track. So that is between them and car 59. And car 59, for those wondering who is car number 59, well, that was Tom Gander, and Gander is in the pits and I think has retired from this race. I think that happened right at the start, as we do see a little bit further back here, we've got Sylvain Pastoris, who's just been passed by Loisinger, and behind you've got Emil Bain here as Chris Humphries is into the pits as well. It's Bain who's, Blaine I should say, who's really trying to get a move here on Loisinger as they come through, and it's actually Monroe's, my apologies, the BMW driver at the front, but we can see Blaine versus what is their Loisinger as they're side by side down for the crane of curves, and Loisinger just backs out of it. I don't think he feels as though he's got the pace at this point in the race, and he may be nursing some damage on that car, but it really does look as though Loisinger is struggling, and I think the front end of that Aston Martin tells the full story what the bonnet is half up as they make their way through the corners right now, and Mills gains the position Mills gains the position as well, and it does look as though Loisinger is battling with a broken car, as we are now down to only 26 drivers running on, well, my apologies, 30 drivers running on circuit. We have had the one retirement, and I believe that was the retirement of Tom Gander early on, and I think we've also lost Jen Kaiser somewhere around on the circuit at one point as well. So we have had a couple of retirements here, but meanwhile, as they make their racing, with regards to Chris Bell's penalty, for those who are wondering, how does this play out as he's dropping a little bit further down the order, Bell, where is the case, it's a 10-second penalty. He will be required to serve it when he pits. If it was after he pitted, he would serve it as an addition to his race time unless he were to pit again. So that's how the time penalty works there, unless it says a stop and go, at which point we will have essentially additional writing to tell us that, as I think we've just had a car decide to make its way off circuit. That's Tolera. They're going very wide out of Gollards. I'm not sure what's wrong with the Ferrari car here, but it might be the fact that the damage he picked up earlier has just done enough damage to the car, or perhaps he just simply locked up under braking. But Tolera, they're definitely paying a visit to the grass, and I think the grass is welcome to have his company for a brief period of time. Now, it should be pointed out the track temperature has come down by a degree centigrade since we started tonight. That shouldn't be affecting those tyre pressures too heavily. In fact, it should make those tyres a little bit easier to abuse, simply for the fact the PSI is not going to come up as rapidly, or the tyre pressure, the pounds per square inch, that's what PSI stands for there. But we'll wait and see. Of course, some drivers might be pushing a bit too hard, particularly if they've got those tyres at a certain angle. But we can see Eduardo Tripiana here, the Spanish driver here from S-Ruba, the SRBJA team, the SRBIJA team, I should say, as they make their way coming up towards turn number 8 right now. The Spaniard doing everything he can all over the back of Chris Bell right now, and definitely trying to leverage the fact that Bell's got that penalty and put the pressure on to get Bell out of the way sooner rather than later, as they make their way down towards turn number 9. Of course, Bell at this point could prove very defensive. He knows he's got the time penalty, so he could play defensive and try and hold the drivers up behind him and pull them back into a race that he will be in once he served that penalty in the pits. But I think for Bell right now, he's battling against the curve here, and as they make their way down into Melbourne Hairpin, you can see it's going to be Tripiano who tries to go all the way round, and as they come through, he hasn't quite got the overspeed, and Bell wise the fact that Porsche does have the handling as they make their way up towards turn number 11 into Gollards. They go here, the camera pans out, you can see Bell on the outside, we've got Tripiano on the inside, and as they come through, it's Tripiano who gets the move done. Bell looks at the cutback here, and that's going to be the sprint down towards turn number 1, but I don't think there's enough straight here for the Porsche to be undone by the straight line speed of the Aston Martin as they make their way down, and it is the fact that Tripiano is up into what is P16. But looking back up towards our leaders right now, we can tell you that Prendergast has actually been reeled in over the last couple of laps very gradually by Harry Phillips right now, has Kieran, as they make their way down towards turn at number 11 here. They're of course on their 14th lap, coming to the end of it and going on to lap 15 very shortly, but Prendergast right now under increasing pressure as we ride on board here with Harry Phillips, right on board from his dashboard, and you can see chasing down Prendergast as much as he possibly can right now as they come up into one, and we'll just stay with him for a little while here and listen to the engine. And as he makes his way down into the old hairpin right now, the Cohesion Simsport driver, of course, trying to hunt down Prendergast. That last lap, they were inseparable, the two of them, in terms of lap time. Both of them in the end 27.6s, albeit it was the case that Prendergast was the 600ths of a second faster. But I do think right now, we have seen this time and time again in other series, that Bentley is able to hold on to its race pace much more smoothly compared to the Ferrari typically. And I think Prendergast is starting to hit perhaps an initial cliff of his pace right now, or perhaps just taking a bit too much out of tyres and having to ease the car down. But definitely, this is close enough to be a potential fight later on. I can also tell you that it's happened off camera, but it's Andres Mesa who has jumped up into P3. He's got ahead of Piringer finally. It's happened a couple of laps ago, it happened 3 laps ago, but it's right now that Andres Mesa is chasing after Phillips, but he has got the fact that Piringer is still there. He's only half a second down on him. And I think it is the case that right now for Piringer, he will do everything he can to stay right there with the Aston Martin driver. It is one of those situations where that BMW has shown itself to be very strong, as we hear that Chris Wall is coming into the pits and is serving his 10-second penalty as things stand. We check in with race control right now. We've also got a 10-second penalty being applied to car 273 for contact with car 34. And if you're wondering who on earth we are on about in terms of 273 and 74, well, car 273, based on our numbers here, well, I will just need to get back and convert that with you. That is Martin Paviezen, and that he is in the pit. Well, he was in the pits quite recently, so he is a lap down the Dutch driver here, the SKM AMG driver, and that was contact with car number 34, and car number 34 being Sylvain Pastoris. And we did see that contact much earlier on, but it was Paviezen who did come off the worst of the two of them as they made their way around the circuit. But coming back to our battle for the race lead right now, we can see that gap has opened up a little bit more for Prendergast. He is eking it open once again here. So perhaps it's just a natural oscillation, but we are seeing that Phillips is not able to maintain as much pressure as perhaps he would like, given the fact that we are now entering the last 50 minutes of the race. And it sounds as though it's a bit of a contradiction, the last 50 minutes, but indeed every minute counts here at Donington as they make their way down towards the chicane once again. Prendergast holding strong right now in that lead, but he has got Harry Phillips, who's trying to inch ever closer to him and will do everything he can in order to be able to put that pressure on as they make their way down towards Melbourne hairpin once again. You can see through the chicane in particular, that's where the run from the turn 8 all the way down towards turn 10, that's where Phillips seems to be the stronger of the two, but it's then as they go into the first half of the lap, that is where Prendergast is able to open up a little bit more of a gap and just gets the better acceleration out of the corners, in particular in those medium speed apexes as well, which would be natural. Mid-engine rear-wheel drive Ferrari versus front-engine rear-wheel drive Bentley, it would be the case that Ferrari's got the better rotation through those lower speed corners. As we do see right now, we've got Ethan Faulkner here, who is chasing after what is... well, it's the BMW of Max Maliar, and I think he will be hoping that that was in fact Piringer there, the two teammates of course in the BMW M6, where it's the case that Maliar, one of the two teammates, is a lap down, but Faulkner can use this as a gauge right now as he goes a little bit wide out of turn 1. He can use it as a gauge to understand, okay, where's that BMW going to be strong, because he would expect that the two teammates may be running similar setups, and I think Faulkner will have that in mind already. As meanwhile, Marcus Fox here in P6, he's got past Jacqueline. He got past Jacqueline earlier on. We didn't see that on camera. He's got a 3-second gap, so I do think that in fact, it's the case that Andre Jacqueline did have a mistake somewhere out on circuit. You're looking at him right now, the Aston Martin driver, but he's had a mistake somewhere, and as a result, he has lost time, because that last lap, he was 3 seconds slower than Fox, and as a result, I do think it was a mistake out on circuit that has cost him that time and lost him the position. But meanwhile, Daniel Korowski here, making his way around right now as the camera pans round him, and he does have their Lara behind him, who's trying to unlap themselves. They're right all over his 6 here, but remember, it's the case that the lead driver right now does not have to give way to a driver who is down the lap unless he feels it's appropriate to do so, or indeed he's impeding that driver as they make their way through turn number 8 once again. But we can see Lara definitely all over the back here, and meanwhile I believe that is Lucas Cedaw here, who's coming past Anthony Brown. Of course, remember, Brown had that instant earlier on, had the spin coming out of the old hairpin, and as a result had to take the pit stop, I think, because of flat spot in the tyres, and Cedaw, a lap ahead of him, just simply gets through there as Brown lets him through turn 8. Great sportsmanship shown there and obedience to the rules as they make their way down towards Melbourne. But meanwhile, as we look a little bit further back up front once again here, we can see Prendergast still leading. But we know how our top 4 is now starting to come together once again. They did open up a little bit, but the gap from P1 to P4 now is 4 seconds. They're all coming from, they're practically all in camera shot. We see 1, we see 2, we see 3, and then we also see just a little bit of the BMW P4. And Faulkner is only 9 seconds of our leader right now. So our top 5 are inching together, and this will definitely get closer and closer. And I think the pit stops will be the biggest factor here in deciding how they go into the second half of their respective races here. Remember that the halfway point is around the 37-minute mark, and that's what we'll be looking out for, is in terms of when are they going to pit. They have not pitted yet, and you can tell that by the fact next to their driver's numbers there, you can see on the left-hand side we've got that orange little background and a white one in the middle. That says they haven't taken a pit stop. They are due 1 pit stop. If it goes green, that means they've pitted, and we know they've taken that mandatory stop. But as we check in with you guys and girls in the chat once again, we can see we've got Distinct Husky there also tuning in and supporting the Distinct driver. As we see Bor Blizant on the YouTube chat as well, supporting the number 33 driver there of Jacqueline. It's great to hear so many of you tuning in and supporting your drivers, of course, as they make their way around the circuit right now. And we can see here a little bit of traffic building up for Prendergast. He's got Scott ahead of him in the McLaren here, and he will need to navigate past that traffic. And I think it will be for him. He'll be hoping as he flashes the lights immediately here, our race leader. You can definitely tell he is feeling some pressure from Phillips right now, as Phillips was 0.2 of a second faster that last lap, and we can see that Mesa really flying by behind him. It's Andres Mesa right now who is absolutely charging around the circuit. He's 0.4 faster than the race leader, 0.2 faster than Phillips, and whilst it's only a small margin, those temps stack up lap on lap as they make their way through. And we see Maliar coming into the pits, and Ulrich, as I look out my commentary box window right now, both coming into the pits. And meanwhile, we look a little bit further down, and we can see Jesse Monroe's right now in P15 leading the charge for P15. He has got Tolera, Blaine, Bell and Mills chasing after him here, all in sequence as they all make their way through turn 8. You love to see them this close, as the BSP Racing driver under a little bit of pressure right now, but behind Tolera here under increasing pressure from Blaine in the battle for P16 as they come through the chicane. And Blaine, my goodness, look at the speed Blaine carried through there compared to Tolera. That was absolutely flying, and he almost clipped the back of Tolera. I think he had to actually let off the steering lock there in order to avoid making the contact and go a little bit deep, but Blaine's looking for the move here, and Tolera, I don't think, has got a way to defend this. because right now it looks as though Blaine is absolutely charging as we ride on board with the Aston Martin driver. As they make their way through Gollards here on what is their 18th tour, and as they come out the corner, you can see there Tolera is really struggling with the rear end of that Ferrari. I think those rear tyres are heavily worn to the point he just cannot get the power down out the corners, and Blaine that actually had to lift out. And as we listen in, you can hear it as they're coming through the corners, how Blaine is essentially having to just be a little bit hesitant on the throttle input there, because you can see Tolera, who went deep in turn 1, we just witnessed that. It's just the fact he's waiting to see what Tolera's car's going to do, because if Tolera keeps having these little moments, he won't be warned off circuit as he goes a bit deep for the old hairpin there and runs out onto the grass. But we can see he's kept the car, and in fact, he's actually been able to gain some time through that runoff there, and I do believe track limits are being imposed as they gain time coming out of that corner. But right now, Blaine looking very strong, and as they come out of turn number 7 here, you can see Blaine getting a little bit too close there, and now as they come over the rise into 8, I think he might have him in the run to the chicane. Depends on whether Tolera can get it right, of course, and Tolera nailing it this time through turn number 8, and Blaine has got no way coming back. But as they come surging down towards the chicane right now, will we see a potential move into the corner? Not this time, he's way too far back. I think Blaine recognising this time, but you can see Tolera going a bit deep there, and as a result, as they come through the corner, this is going to be the best possible opportunity he could ask for, and it's going to be a drag race. Now, will Blaine go for the cutback, or will he try and send it all the way around the outside? Well, I don't think the Aston Martin's got the ability to go round the houses here, and in fact, he goes for the cutback there, and Tolera, I do not think has got an answer to this one as he goes a little bit deep on the return here, and now it's Blaine who will have the acceleration, but the Ferrari is no slouch in the lower gears, to be fair, but it is Blaine who gets the position as they come through the hairpin here. There's a tiny little bit of contact there, but I do think Blaine now has got the momentum out of Gollard's corner here. Blaine up into P16 after a very long battle with Tolera, and now we can see that Mills staying behind him for the time being, as behind them we can see, I think that's Ablasser there, who is a lap down as our race leaders are now coming through to lap more of the field here, and Ablasser in the way of everybody here as he just tries to move out of the way, and he does so peacefully as we can see our top 3 come surging through, and meanwhile Pieringer a little bit further back. He will not be able to clear Ablasser immediately. He will have to wait a little bit longer. You can see he's already flashing his lights here as if to say, please get out of the way as quickly as possible. I'd really appreciate it. I'm going to hunt the man down in front of me, and I've got a very, very fast Ferrari chasing after me right now. But as they make the way through the old hairpin here, we can see Ablasser moving out of the way immediately, and indeed our race leaders really coming up against traffic fast here and at the worst possible places. But look at Mesa, who's been using the traffic to his advantage here. The distinct GG drive all over the back of Phillips right now as they make their way through turn number 8 here, and as they come through the Spaniard, he's going to be looking for a strong push here down in towards the chicane. I think he might have the momentum to attempt to move. Now, will Phillips go on the defensive here? Will Mesa's getting closer and closer? Now, will he do it under braking? No, surely not. He's a little bit too far back to go for it here, and there's not enough space to do it. But as they come through the chicane, you can see that Bentley very stable through the chicane and able to carry just a little bit more speed compared to the Aston Martin. But as they now come down towards the Melbourne hairpin here, we know how they're coming together, but there's no change right now, and Prendergast is only 1 second up the road from these guys as we see their Pieringer stuck behind Blaine for a little bit, but Blaine will move out the way shortly, no doubt, as the blue flags get waved and the lights are flashing the windows. We see he goes deep there into the hairpin, and that will release Pieringer up into his chasing position of P4 as they now make their way down onto another lap here, going onto their 22nd lap, and we can see Prendergast already flashing the lights here. He knows that he needs to get away from Phillips and Mesa before the Spaniard gets past Phillips and finds a way through as they all run wide, and in fact Mesa goes a little bit too wide and drops off the curb there slightly, and that's going to cost him a small amount of time and put some additional weight in those left-hand tyres. But as he makes his way down towards the old hairpin right now, it is the case the Spaniard is on a mission to get P2 back, and he knows he's got to get it done soon because the traffic's coming up at the worst possible places, and he wants to be right there. As we can see there, that is the Ferrari of Tolera that's right in the middle of the road. It's moved out of the way just about, as we can see that Mesa's so close again to the back of the Bentley of Phillips as they come through turn number 7. It's getting very close indeed between these two, but I don't think again there's going to be any potential move right now, although I might be mistaken as we ride on board here with Harry Phillips, the Cohesion Simsport driver, making his way out to turn at number 8 and heading down towards turn number 9 right now, down towards the chicane. And again, it is this repeated pattern. Gareth Mills moving out of the way, but Mills in the process loses a position to Tolera there by showing the respect to let drivers through, and I think Mills is going to be a little bit aggrieved by that as we look back to live pictures here, and you can see he's lost the place to Tolera by simply being polite and moving out of the way due to the blue flags, and now he's got it all to do again versus Tolera as they make their way out of the first of the 2 hairpins in the final sequence of corners. But meanwhile, we come back to our battle for P2 here, and it is definitely heating up. 43 minutes of racing to go here, and neither one of them have yet to pit stop, and Prendergast is only a second up the road as well, and these guys all very similar on pace. Phillips and Mesa just set the same lap, a 1:28.086, identical down to the 1,000. That shows you how hard these two are pushing versus one another despite the traffic, and Prendergast have a 28.248. Meanwhile, Peringer with a 28.221. So Peringer not far off the pace of the leaders. He's just not close enough to really leverage the fact they're coming up against the traffic right now, and that means he's stuck in that P4 position and not able to go on the hunt for the podium. But again, he might have an ace up his sleeve with regards to the strategy. We'll have to wait and see as he makes his way up towards turn 7 right now, does Phillips, and we can see their Mesa once again close. Now, as we check in with our race stewards here, any other information to come for the time being? We can see there is a drive-through for car 97, and that is due to almost coming to a stop to make pit entry, and we will wait and find out who that is for very shortly with car 97. But focusing in now, Mesa looking for a little feint of a move into the chicane, not able to find it this time. Now, car 97, for those wondering, was Chris Bell, and that was when he was coming into the pit. So Bell's day going from good to bad to disastrous. He's down in P28 right now, and he is chasing after what I believe it's Sylvain Pastorius, but Pastorius is the best part of 9.5 seconds up the road from our British driver here. It's not working out. It's not a great debut, but still there's plenty more racing for him ahead. But meanwhile, our battle for the lead, it continues as they make their way around to complete lap number 23 and to go on to lap number 24. And as they do so here, it is a case right now that they will be hoping, well, particularly our race leader will be hoping there's no traffic ahead of him. And the guys behind, you can see those lap times. They are practically identical. Phillips there was a 10th faster than the race leader, and also Mesa behind him. But Prendergast, to be fair, no slouch. And Peringer at 27.7. And Faulkner down in P5. It should be pointed out here, whilst he is a little way back compared to our top 4, he's putting identical laps into our leaders right now, albeit perhaps a 10th off that last one at 27.8. So Faulkner right now just simply, I think, nursing that car and making sure to keep it running as best as he possibly can, as he has got a little bit of traffic ahead of him right now. We can see Mills there going for the move versus what is Tolera there as the camera pans round, and it is the case that Mills going for the very nice move as he goes under the bridge there through turns 4, 5 and 6 and into 7, and Tolera losing the rear end. He's got to be so careful with that car. I think, hold on a second, if we just try and get the camera back to what is Faulkner there, Faulkner just squeezing through. I thought Tolera was going to lose the car there, and Faulkner was going to get caught on the rear end of it, but it looks as though Tolera in the end has been able to stop the car, and Faulkner's been able to get through. That was a very close one, and Faulkner would not have wanted that to happen for sure, as they make their way down towards the chicane one more time here, and you can see Faulkner now continuing his way on, but very wary of the traffic around it. I think Mills is going to be cautious to let Faulkner through. He won't want to lose the position to Tolera this time as they make their way down into the hairpin. You can see there Mills in fact staying in as Tolera goes for a move here on the inside, and Mills going very deep with respect to the blue flags, but he uses that to get the momentum out the corner. A nice idea by Mills there, and he now returns to the racing line as we see Korowski here making his Korowski here making his way into the pits. He's just taking his pit stop here, and he's P15 currently. But meanwhile, our race leader here, he's in P1. Of course, it's Prendergast. He's got more traffic ahead of him, and this time it is the traffic of Blaine that moves out the way immediately in the Craner curves. And then we've got more up the road. Jesse Monrose and Scott just up the road from him as well. But Monrose only 1 second around, and you just saw the BMW M6 driver come through your picture. But meanwhile, we look at Andres Mesa as the cameraman pans round there, and as they make their way through underneath the bridge through 5 and 6 and coming up into 7 once again, it is the case that Mesa right now trying to find a way past Phillips, and this has been going on for so long right now as we ride on board once again here with the Aston Martin driver, and I do not think he can find a way through at this current point in time, but he is very close, I can assure you, and I think he's looking for that opportunity. We see Blaine there on the racing line. Meanwhile, Phillips and Mesa are going to come through offline, but they'll return to that racing line just at the right time, and we see our race leader has just got past Monrose and is starting to open up a little bit of a gap. Is Prendergast. That gap has now opened up to almost 2 seconds as we see Mesa there taking a huge swath of momentum there through the chicane, but it's not enough in order to get him into an attacking position for the Melbourne hairpin here as they make their way through. And we can see that Monrose there having to move out of the way as a matter of an emergency as he pulls off the racing line, and both our drivers come through here and they continue to close up. But how long will it be before one of them gives in and goes to the pit stop? We're not quite there at halfway distance. 1 more minute to go and we will be exactly halfway for these guys, and we can see a lot of pit stops starting to occur as I think Malia is into the pits and permanently. I think Max Malia has retired from the race unless I'm mistaken, but it is the case right now. Our battle for the top 4 could not be closer as they make their way around once again. We look a little bit further down the order, of course, and right now it is the case that Ollie Moss in P19. Well, he's chasing after Tolera. Tolera really struggling in that Ferrari right now. The lap time's coming away, and I think Tolera's into the pits. Yes, he is indeed. So Moss will be promoted up to what is P17 there, and the McLaren driver from the Volante Aztec Sim Sports team doing everything he needs to right now in the number 22 car to bring home a positive result here. He's just got to keep it together. Of course, he was caught up in the mass drama through the crane of curves there on lap number 1, but as he makes his way down this time, no drama at this point in time, just keeping it nice and smooth and coming down the hill. Now, one driver who we haven't talked about as well, as the camera will pan around to him shortly, is Marcus Foxy, as he's making his way right now underneath the bridge in P5. And we hear there the halfway mark, still a long way to go for all of our drivers, but the Foxy Racing driver here doing a very good job. He's yet to pit, of course, but in P5 he's got a gap of what is 21 seconds to Piringer, and he's got a gap to Jacqueline behind him of 12.6 seconds. And for Fox right now, it's all about just keeping it smooth and trying to bring home a top 5, which if so, I think this is looking quite positive for the number 67 driver. But as we look back to our battle ahead, we can see that Phillips has just pulled a little bit away from Mesa this time, and I think he's feeling a bit comfortable right now. Perhaps it's just the way things have worked out in the traffic, or perhaps Mesa's taken a little bit too much out of the car, but we can see our top 4 all in that singular camera shot there, all running once again on near identical pace, and it is the case right now. I think they're all taking a little bit of a breather before going hunting once again here, and they've also got a bit of freedom from traffic for a brief period of time. But as we take a look in here once again, with regards to you guys and girls, and nothing new from everybody at the moment. I think everyone's just intensely glued to their screens with regards to the racing. We can see a drive-through penalty for Tolera. Now, I'm wondering what this is for. We're going to have it confirmed to us by the stewards very shortly, and it was a drive-through to car 52, so that definitely is, as I understand it, Tolera. And that was versus car number 664, and 664, for comparison, ladies and gentlemen, was the car of Emil Blaine, and we saw that earlier happen. We saw that briefly happen, and that was an aggressive attempt to overtake 664 without being alongside, resulted in 664 being sent off the track. So that explains what happened. And as we come back to the pictures right now with regards to our live racing, looking away from our laptop screen briefly, we can see right now Phillips and Mesa nose to tail still, and Prendergast definitely starting to pull a little bit away up the road right now, as Phillips and Mesa will need to navigate Scott, who's just ahead of them as they go into turn number 10. We can see Scott moving a little bit deep there, but not moving immediately out of the way here, and I think the blue flag is going to be waved a little bit more feverishly, and once he does move out of the way, which he does there, it's the case our top 3 are all clear. Now, will we see a pit stop this time? And no, we do indeed. We see Prendergast come into the pits here. So he is the first of our top 4 to react to the pits. And that means now it will be Phillips and Mesa who take the battle for the race lead around the circuit and continue to do so here. And I do wonder at this point whether we will see at the end of this lap either Phillips or Mesa pit, or will we see, if it's not either of those two, will we see Piringer respond here? As we do see that Mesa's looking for a potential move here into the old hairpin. And as they come down, he looks to the inside here into turn 4, but he's not able to get the move done. But I think that Mesa's recognising now that with the case that our race leader, our incumbent race leader, has come into the pits, he now needs to get a move on here and try and get this move done, because he's losing time and he needs to take positional advantage here to go deeper into the race. If he's planning to go for the overcut on the pit stop, which I suspect he may be right now, as we see Scott there taking to the runoff out of turn 7 in order to be able to clear all the leaders coming through. We can see that right now Phillips holding on to his lead right now, but Mesa just cannot find a way to undo the strengths of that Bentley. He's got so much speed behind him, he just cannot unleash it where he needs to get the move done. But you can see there Tolera just up ahead of them, who will need to move out the way for our race leaders as they both come charging through down into the hairpin. They come down into the Melbourne hairpin, and we can see here Tolera just ahead of them, and we'll be able to be getting the blue flags. But it's Phillips who had to go defensive there, as we've got Mesa all over the back of him once again. And as they make the way up towards the second of the hairpins in the sequence to complete the lap, we can see it's Phillips to the inside. Mesa goes for the outside move here. They're side by side, but there's no way through. He looks at the cutback, but the Bentley driver parks there as we see Tolera comes in for his drive through, and it's our top 3 in the camera shot right now. It's Phillips, Mesa and Piringer is closing on these guys rapidly, because you can see how they're fighting and they're costing one another time. As we look back from the Bentley driver here as they make their way through turn 1 with 33.5 minutes remaining as they come down through the crane of curves. And right now it's the case that for our race leader who's come into the pits, Prendergast, who's come back out in P7, it should be pointed out, he's going to be smiling to hear probably from his team that they're battling out there right now, because he will simply, well, we believe he would re-inherit the lead and gain a little bit of time over these guys if he has not taken an extended pit stop, or he's not made a mistake in the pits. As we hear a stop and go 30-second penalty for Timofeo in P11. We'll find out about that very shortly for you, ladies and gentlemen. But with the live pictures right now, Harry Phillips doing everything he can in order to hold off Mesa, and it is a phenomenal defensive job here from from the Bentley driver just to hold on, nailing every corner with so much pressure building on. But these guys are professionals in their class. They know what they're doing there as they make their way down towards the chicane once again here. Now, will we see a potential shot or move this time? We will not, as they make their way through the chicane and head down towards turn at number 10. Now, will it be the case that Mesa just sends it? He's getting very close this time as the Spain. He's going to send it on the inside. He's gone for it as Mesa, and as they come through the corner, he goes a bit too deep. He doesn't manage to park on the apex, and Phillips comes back on the inside. They'll switch to the outside now, as we see that Phillips makes the cut across there. He cuts the inside to defend. Mesa goes to the outside here, realising there's going to be no way through. And as they make their way out the final corner, will we see a feint to the pits? We see the BMW driver Piringer into the pits. So Piringer has responded. He knows that these guys are going to cost him time if he stays behind them and they battle. So instead, he's gone in. And this is going to be critical for these two. Surely one of them will now need to react to Piringer pitting, because if not, it's going to be the case that their battling may give Piringer the ability to jump up into P2. How far will their battling take them right now? Will it be the case that Mesa looks for another move, or does he start to back it off a little bit and think, okay, I need to rework my strategy because I clearly cannot find a way past the Bentley driver after spending so long behind him? Because Harry Phillips right now is doing everything he can to hold on to that track position. He has thrown the kitchen sink and then some, and it's working out as they come past Trippiani here, who's in P9. So to give you an idea, they've lapped already up to P9, albeit they haven't had a pit stop yet. Meanwhile, it's the case that Trippiani hasn't had a pit stop, it should be pointed out. But that's how fast our race leaders are going around the circuit right now. Faulkner has pitted, I should point out as well. So Ethan Faulkner's down into P8 as it currently stands. But focusing here and now on the battle for the lead with 31.5 minutes to go, I do wonder how long it's going to be before one of them reacts. Surely it's got to be soon. Because right now, if you're wondering where Kieran Prendergast is by comparison, well, we'll just wait and see if there's a potential move here from Mesa. There's not. Kieran Prendergast, meanwhile, our race leader before he pitted, the BP Racing driver, is just going through the old hairpin right now. And in terms of chasing after drives, the next driver up the road is Jacqueline, and he is 11 seconds ahead of him and closing rapidly. In fact, he's now actually 10 seconds. Our time screen's updated. That's how fast Prendergast is going around the circuit right now. But as we come back to our race leaders, neither of them pit again. And I do think now they're going to be costing one another time by not pitting if the battling continues. It's just too much time to be lost here. And where is our P4 driver before who pitted when he was P4? And now he's come out the pits, of course. Well, he has dropped quite a way down the order, has Piringer, well, in fact, he's not dropped all the way down the order. Piringer having a very short stop, in fact, and you can see here, he's come out in P4. He's ahead of Prendergast right now, and I do think for Piringer, it may be the case they didn't go for the tyre change. They just put the fuel in the car and deciding to run. But the M6 driver's come back out in P4, and the next driver up the road is Fox, Marcus Fox, who is 10 seconds ahead of him, and he's got a gap of what is 5 seconds to Cedaw behind him, who's got Jacqueline chasing after him, but there's a sizable gap between the two of them. But for Piringer right now, taking a short stop here, he's gained the track position on what is Prendergast, and where will it work out? As meanwhile we see Kieran here, Kieran Prendergast making his way across that timeline up towards turn 1 right now. So it is all turntables with regards to the strategy. I think it'll be the case that Prendergast, having taken some fresh tyres, will have the rubber to go chasing after Piringer towards the end, but we'll wait and see how it plays out as those lap times come in. We'll brief you on that. But meanwhile, our race leaders, once again, as they make their way through the Melbourne hairpin here. I appreciate we've only been really looking at 4 to 5 drivers. We do have plenty more drivers here, but it's really brewing up right now, ladies and gentlemen. So you have to excuse me for that. But as they make their way through the hairpin here, will we see one of them defect into the pits this time? Surely. No, they both stay out again here, and they continue to go racing. But meanwhile, up into P3 right now, and I think he's going to be very pleased here. He's in a very peaceful P3. Marcus Fox here, the Fox Sim Racing driver, doing very well. The Austrian, of course, he has not pitted yet, so he has to be aware of the fact he will need to pit at some point. But when I did briefly have a chat to Fox before he got in the car, he does love this track, especially the elevation changes and the fast flying corners. And he did his first ever 2-hour plus race at this circuit. And in terms of his goals or expectations, he's really been looking to work on overtakes and defending, and also looking for drivers for similar pace who want to join future team events. So I think for Fox right now, he'll be very happy with the pace he's putting in, and the Porsche is definitely, as he said it himself, the Porsche fits his driving style best, and he is showing it here today. As meanwhile, Piringer has got himself into that P4 position, of course, and Cedaw, Lucas Cedaw, right now the Polish driver, racing for his local charity, doing everything he can in that P5 position, just trying to push on as much as he possibly can. And you can see there, you have got Jacqueline a bit further back, the Aston Martin driver in P6, doing everything he needs to right now to bring home a good top 10 finish and trying to close down Cedaw. The gap between them, of course, 5.5 seconds, and on that last lap, Jacqueline was the best part of 3 tenths of a second faster. As our race leaders this time come out of what is the hairpin there, the Melbourne hairpin, and go up towards Gollard's corner one more time. This is on lap number 32 here. 28 minutes to go. Will we see one of them going to the pits this time? I don't think so. I think they're going to carry on and literally go towards the very end here. Now, the lap times are coming in, ladies and gentlemen. I can tell you that our P4 man of Piringer, who you're looking at on screen right now, the Jochen Sveiser powered by BMW driver here, the number 405 car, his last lap was a 1:28.311, so his first flying lap since the pit stop. Meanwhile, Prendergast, who set the fastest lap of anybody, a 26.775 on that last lap. A phenomenal lap that is. Indeed, that shows you, I think Prendergast has definitely gone for those fresh tyres, but he has got a sizable gap to close down to Piringer. It is a 13-second gap that he's got to close down as Piringer has just crossed the timing line. Meanwhile, Prendergast is coming up to the final corner right now, and he does have traffic ahead of him. He's got Jacqueline, and he's also got Cedaw, but remember, those two have yet to pit. So as a result, he may get lucky, may Prendergast, and they may both just simply go into the pits at the right time, but we will wait and see how that plays out. Now, for those of you wondering, where's Ethan Faulkner meanwhile? Well, he's down in P8 after taking his pit stop right now. His last lap was a 27.672, so not the best lap of his racing, but still in P8 at the moment, and expecting potentially to inherit himself back up to P5 in short order, as we see meanwhile Eduardo Tripiana here making his way down towards the Melbourne hairpin here, the Spaniard in P9. We're just taking a quick look through the field for you folks, because the field has spaced out somewhat, and our main battle really is up towards the front, with a lot of drivers being separated now by a good bit of daylight, as we see Korowski here in P10 and taking his pit stop, the last of the points paying positions, and he has got Fabio Chiena here chasing after him, but they've got Scott between them at the moment. Scott, of course, a lap down in P25 as they make their way into the hairpin of turn 10. We can see Scott going there deep intentionally, I think, to give Chiena the ability to come through, but then they rejoin, and there's a little bit of contact almost there, and we can see just behind them you do have Sylvain Pastores, and it's Ollie Moss who's down in P12 right now, and a little way back by 5 seconds. As we see, Tolera has picked up a stop-and-go 30-second penalty to add to what has been a race with some penalties for him already. As we see there, that is Pastores trying to come up through the field. That is Sylvain Pastores battling with Scott here on the inside. This is a P25 on turn number 1. Of course, these guys are a lap down as they make their way through, but Pastores just simply smoothing his way through for the P25 position there. And I think for Sylvain, it's been a difficult day of racing, the Rinaldi racing driver, and he will be looking to bounce back as of the next round. I think he had a lot more pace in the tank, but it hasn't been to be today, as he makes his way right now through the old hairpin and underneath the turn 5-6 bridge. They run under there. But meanwhile, coming back to our race leaders once again here, it's the case Phillips and Mesa right now making their way down towards Melbourne once again, and no change between the two of them. Although you can see Mesa taking that aggressive braking line there into the hairpin. He's trying to get into Phillips's mind once again. He wants Phillips to make a mistake. I think that's the only way he feels he can get a move on here. He's either got to send it into a hairpin, alternatively he's got to get Phillips to make a mistake. A very rare mistake it would seem. It would seem the pair of them are loath to making mistakes. Mesa's the one who made one mistake earlier on in the race, and that's how they changed positions, how Mesa dropped out the lead. But right now, it is the case that Mesa just cannot find a way to break through the Bentley barrier as they make their way through turn 1 once again. And this is onto their 35th lap right now. And you can see the Spaniard all over the back of the Bentley as we ride on board here with Mesa as they come down into the old hairpin through the corner curves. They go here, and as they go through the corner, he's so close to the back right now. I can only imagine the pressure that must be on the pair of them. The Spaniard as well, he will not want to make any contact or any mistakes here. He knows he's got to be this close to make a move. He looks onto the inside here, and as they come up into turn 6, he's going to look round into turn 7. They look round the outside, and Mesa's going to try and commit to it, but it's just not enough racing room there in order to be able to get it done. And when I mean racing room, in terms of racing line room to get it done, but Mesa trying to find unconventional spots in order to get the move. You know he's got so much pace tapped up in that AMR Vantage right now. He just cannot find a way to get it unleashed. He can't get through, and it's the case that Phillips doing everything he needs just to simply hold on to that race lead. But do remember, it is the case that right now Piringer and also Prendergast will be gaining every lap they fight one another, and these two have yet to pit. As we see there, that is the McLaren of Effenstedt moving out of the way. He's in P21. He's got a nice gap to P22. Jesse Monroe's the further part of 11 seconds down our P21 drive. But right now, our race leaders, surely one of them has got to react. It's 24 minutes to go right now in this 75-minute race. It feels as though the time's gone by so fast, and neither one of them has yet to pit once again. What are they thinking? That is the big question here. It's going to be the shortest stop of the century for the pair of them at this rate, as we can see that Piringer right now in P4, where he's gradually closing up to Fox, who's yet to pit. Fox is now only the best part of 8.5 seconds ahead of Piringer. Piringer, of course, in the BMW there, not opting to change his tyres in the pits and still putting in good pace. He's got Ollie Moss ahead of him, who's a lap down in P12 in that McLaren 720S there, and Piringer will expect the blue flags to be waved for the McLaren driver very shortly as he comes up into the Gollard's corner here. And then we've got Lucas Cedaw here in P5 as Prendergast has already got past Jacqueline, it should be pointed out. And we can see here Prendergast in P6 right now. He's past Jacqueline, who's now 7 seconds down the road. I think it might be the case, in fact, that Jacqueline's made a mistake somewhere off circuit, because his last lap was a 31.1 compared to Prendergast's 27.2. So I think whilst Prendergast does have the fresher tyres, Jacqueline's definitely made a mistake somewhere out on circuit. So Prendergast is coming through that racing order right now. As we can see, he's flashed his lights there for the Mercedes AMG of Perfusen as they make their way through turn number 1. He is flying right now as Prendergast, but does he have enough time to close down Piringer and also our race leaders should they come back out ahead of him right now? Well, I can tell you versus Piringer, he is taking at least a second out of Piringer a lap, and he has got another further 11 seconds to chop out of that lead to Piringer. As we can see, he's making his way right now through turns 5 and 6 once again, and with 22 minutes remaining right now and the lap time being 1.5 minutes, he can definitely get to Piringer within that time. It'll be whether Piringer lets him through that easily, of course, which I doubt Piringer will, because I think Piringer right now may be salivating at the prospect of being the race winner if the two race leaders do not have short stops. And of course, we do have to question the fact that Marcus Fox right now, of course, has yet to pit as well. He's in P3. How long will his stop be? As we see, Jacqueline has just come in to the pit, and he's just left the pits. In fact, here's the Aston Martin driver down in P8 right now. He's dropped another position with his pit stop there, but he does have some space to Trippiana in P9. And the driver he's got chased after, who's in P7, is Ethan Faulkner, who had a pit stop much earlier on. And Faulkner right now making his way down towards the chicane here. Doing a good job as the Irishman right now of getting himself back into the race. As we see, he's got Velkoski ahead of him. Velkoski the best part of a lap down, of course, and he will be lapping at the driver very shortly. I mean, once we look a little bit further down the order, we can see we've got Gareth Mills here, who is just ahead of Blaine right now in P22. Mills, meanwhile, Mills in P22, Blaine in P23, and Mills trying to find his way past Tolera here. Tolera's getting the blue flags being waved to him, and I think we're just going to check in with our shoulds as to what the stop and go 30-second penalty for Tolera was for earlier on, and I think that may have been for track limits, but it also does look as though for car 52, as we just check in, it was for Victor Tolera here. It was a drive-through, two drive-throughs for Tolera here for ignoring blue flags and instead triggering contact by taking out the number 11 car. Well, the number 11 car, to give you an idea who was number 11, that was Rainer Effenstedt, and well, it's the case that I think Tolera's having a bit of a difficult race at the office today as they make their way down into the Melbourne hairpin, and we can see Blaine there making his way through, and Tolera trying to turn in but finding a face full of Blaine instead as the Aston Martin driver makes his way through the corner. Our race leaders have gone on to their 38th lap. It should just be pointed out, no pit stop from them yet. Oh, and Blaine locking up under braking there versus Mills, and then to stop the car is an emergency, but I think it's just the case that Blaine just getting a little bit too eager on the brakes there, but you can definitely tell Blaine's got some pace to unleash right now as he chases down Mills. These two have been battling one another over the course of the race somewhat, but Blaine right now just simply needs to calm it down a little bit with regards to that pace. He's got it there, but can he unleash it? That is the big question as they make their way out, and we can see Tolera and Blaine both getting it wrong through turn 1 there. Tolera having a smoother run out compared to Blaine, but both drivers clearing the corner. As meanwhile, Christian Ablasser here, he's all over the back of Sylvain Pastoris in the battle for P24 as they make their way through, and I believe just ahead of them, that is the battle for P10. That is indeed, that's Korowski versus Kiena here as they make their way down into the hairpin right now. We see Korowski holding on, but he goes a little bit deep there, and the Aston Martin driver is going to have the run out of turn 4. Now it's coming uphill into the left-handers of 5 and 6, and we see it's the Aston Martin of Kiena who tries to hold here. He's going to be on the inside for 7 as they make their way through. Kiena, if he can get this done, this will be brave stuff, and he's got the move, but now will it be the case that Korowski's able to come back at him around the outside into 8? They make the way of the crest of the hill. They've got Sylvain Pastoris behind them, who's a lap down, who can't pass them whilst they're batting, although he would love to, as they make their way through the corner. Kiena there with the move up into P10. A brilliant one from the Swiss there. The Temev Racing driver making the move stick, and as they make their way down to the chicane, will Korowski be able to come back in? We will have to wait and see as they make their way through that chicane. For them, the 37th time of asking, and they press down towards the Melbourne hairpin once again. 19 minutes to go here. These drivers, of course, haven't taken their pit stops. Most drivers haven't pitted right now, but meanwhile, I can tell you with all this going on, we can see that Kieran Prendergast here is making his way closer and closer to Lucas Cedaw here, and Cedaw has yet to pit. He's got a 3-second gap over Prendergast. I don't think he'll battle with Prendergast because they're in different races. Meanwhile, Piringer, who's up the road, is now only 7 seconds up the road from our P6 man right now, and you can imagine that Prendergast, with 19 minutes remaining, will be looking to do everything he can to close down that gap. He will want this win so much, given the fact that he decided to pit early compared to everybody else, and it's worked out. He found himself some clear traffic, and he's been able to go hunting for the race win. But we'll wait and see as we see a brief yellow flag being waved there. Perhaps drivers just run off in sector 1, but we'll wait and find out as meanwhile he makes his way down through the crane of curves. Meanwhile in P15, and talk about a recovery drive here, Paco Lara right now, the Spanish driver here from the Prototype Racing team, making his way through at turn at number 1, and Paco doing a very good job of just keeping it smooth right now. Anthony Brown is the best part of 3 seconds up the road from Lara, both of them in the McLaren 720S. We've got a little army of McLarens in the midfield here, and it's the case that right now Lara doing everything he can. And with regards to that stop and go 30-second penalty for Tim O'Fay, the number 48 car, I'm not seeing anything on my stewarding screen here to tell me that that was for an instance. I think that's probably for track limits of some sort, of speeding in the pit lane for Tim O'Fay, and I'm referring to the pink Lamborghini here. You can't miss it, the Tim O'Fay machine, as he makes his way down towards the old hairpin right now, chasing down Adrian Loisinger, the Aston Martin driver, just ahead of him, 1 second ahead as they both make their way through. That Lamborghini very strong in terms of acceleration and also rotation through the corners, but of course a wildly beast to be able to drive, as we hear that Trippiani has made his way into the pits from P9. I'm just seeing it out in my commentary box right now. I'm actually standing up and having a look, but right now Afeo doing everything he can in P19 to close down Loisinger in P18. Meanwhile, an update on our leaders. While our leaders are getting a little bit feisty there, both coming out of turn 7 and both using a little bit of run wide there, we can see that Phillips and Mason still nose to tail here. They're inseparable throughout, and this is phenomenal stuff. 17 minutes remaining here. And I think it is the case for them. They are both going to go to the very end before they pit. Track temperatures come down by a further degree centigrade, down to 26 now, it should be pointed out. And that will mean our drivers will need to raise those tyre pressures just a little bit when they put fresh tyres on, if they go for fresh tyres. But for these guys, lapping in the high 27s, both of them 27.8s on that last lap, near identical laps. Mesa was only the best part in the end of 9,000 slower, and I think that's more likely because of the fact he's been tucked up behind the Bentley rather than he's the slower driver here. It is the case that these two are just inseparable, and if this is going to be the rivalry between them over the course of the season, it will be a story to tell as they make their way across that timeline onto lap 41. As they make their way through the right-hander of turn 1, you can see the number 26 car looking very composed here. Mesa really pushing the limits on the exit of turn 1, and I think it is for him. He's got to, again, it's one of those situations right now where he's committed to trying to get past Phillips. He's not going for an undercut at any point. He's just keeping that pressure on as Marcus Fox comes into the pits, the Fox Sim Racing machine from P3. Now, where's P4 in all this? Well, this is Piringer just making his way out the final corner right now, so Piringer will definitely take this position off of him. And meanwhile, if you're looking for P5 and P6, we'll look no further. We have 2 Ferrari drivers nose to tail. Cedaw, Lucas Cedaw here has yet to pit. Meanwhile, behind him, that is Prendergast there, who has gained the position. He's got himself up into P5 with Fox still in the pit, and it is the case that right now for Prendergast, he will be looking to get past Cedaw very rapidly. Now, does Cedaw fight this, or does he simply let Prendergast through, knowing the fact he's still got a pit stop to take? As we hear, there's a 5-second penalty for Korowski in P10 right now as they make their way through, and Ralph Piringer, of course, now being promoted back up into P3. He makes his way through the corners, but meanwhile, Cedaw here holding onto the position for the time being in P4, but I think that's more because of the fact that Prendergast is not close enough to go for a move. But as they make their way through the corners here, and we ride on board with Prendergast getting ever closer to his fellow Ferrari driver right now as they come surging through. You can see how close he's getting under braking. That is the advantage of the fresh tyres, now a little bit of speed, and Cedaw not making an attempt at defending this. He's lifted off before they've even come out the corner, and I think that's simply because he respects the fact he's not in the hunt for the race lead, and why would it be worth his time battling when he can bring home what could be a very strong result in his own race here. Meanwhile, as they make their way through, it's now Piringer who's 6 seconds up the road, in fact 5.5 seconds up the road. And to give you an idea, where is Piringer? He's just coming out of the Melbourne hairpin. Meanwhile, Prendergast has just gone through the apex, and we will see him start to emerge in the rear of the camera shot as we see Korowski and also Moss both getting a 5-second penalty there for their troubles. I'm not sure what's happened between the two of them, but what we can see a little bit up front, it's Pafusen versus what is Tolera. They're battling as they make their way into turn number 1. Well, in fact, that's not. It's the case you've got Kiena there who's getting past. He's lapping these guys, and Pafusen is not able to chase after Tolera, who's just broken away in the Ferrari ahead of him right now. But meanwhile, those 5-second penalties, well, I can tell you that it's the case that Rainer Erfenstedt is in P20 right now, and he's in a bit of clear track. He's not really got any pressure around him. But as we continue to look around the circuit, our race leaders, meanwhile, they're still battling for position here, P1 and P2, and they've got 14 minutes to go right now. No pit stop from either at the moment, and I can't see the pit crews coming surging out at any point. So they're both playing the bluff game right now. I think both of them will be hoping that the other driver pits to release the other one, or at least giving them the sign, okay, it's go time. I've got one lap to try and jump him back in terms of the pits. But as they make their way through the final corner, we can see they both continue on that racing line here, continuing around the circuit and pressing onwards to what is lap number 43. Piringer, meanwhile, well, we said only moments ago in P3, and he has got Prendergast getting closer. Prendergast now 4 seconds down, as we do see here we've got Tolera moving out the way, and it's the case that behind you've got Profusen, who's trying to get his way past Tolera here as they all condescend their way through the corner, and it is one of those situations whereby the traffic is a tricky one to navigate here, as Piringer holds onto that P3 position and gets past all of the back markers. Kiena there moving out the way in P9 and doing so in admirable order. But meanwhile, we look back to our P10 driver here, Korowski, who's just literally behind him. And you're probably wondering, why has he got a 5-second penalty? Well, to answer that question for you, it's a 5-second penalty for feathering the brake when defending. So it is the case that there was contact between two drivers for what was car number 420 at Daniel Korowski. It was in a battle with car number 47 for feathering the brake, making the defending manoeuvre work due to contact with car 47. So that was in the battle with Fabio Chiena, who's just up the road from him as he goes for the move there. Korowski on what was Profusen, no, sorry, not Profusen, Tolera, and Tolera losing the position to Profusen, who uses Korowski there to act as a means of coming through. And you can see all the traffic coming through. And look at the one person who's been inconvenienced the most by this. Prendergast has literally come up against two sets of traffic trying to get themselves past back markers here, and he's going to be absolutely screaming out for blue flags at this point, because remember, Tolera is 2 laps down, Moss is 1 lap down, and as a result Moss has just had to navigate his way past Tolera's Ferrari, and now as he tries to come through here, this goes to show you how fast the field has been separating out. And it is the case that Prendergast right now in this difficult situation where he's trying to navigate so much traffic in a single order here, as we see Moss now makes his way past Profusen here, and as they make their way down to the braking zone. If you're wondering why Ollie Moss, meanwhile, has got a 5-second time penalty, well, I can explain the reason for that is simply because of contact with what was car number 34. Well, sorry, not car number 34. He didn't make contact with him. It was car 34 he was involved with, and that was because of making a massive send as he taps the back of Prendergast's car there. Tolera gets it wrong on the apex, and everybody comes together, and it looks as though there we've got a Ferrari coming in, and I think that was, while the Ferrari slowed down, I think that was the Ferrari of Pastoris. I'm not 100% sure there, but we did just see a Ferrari pop into the pits. But Moss getting a 5-second penalty for a send move on another car earlier on in the race. But meanwhile, our race leaders, well, they're battling side by side. It's a good time to come out as Mace's trying to make the move around the outside into the chicane, and it didn't work. There was a little bit of contact there, but I think Mace are trying to go the long way round there through a corner where there's only one way through, and as a result they continue this battle in towards the Melbourne chicane, and you can see they've got traffic ahead of the pair of them right now. And with only 10.5 minutes to go, it'll be 10 minutes by the time they get to the timeline to go on to lap number 45, as we see Afeo versus Loising here goes to the move on the inside, and the Lamborghini driver doing a very, very late move, but getting it done as Loising they're being caught out by a little bit there, and as both our race leaders now come across that timeline once again. We can see that it's the case of Ferris staying on the racing line. Meanwhile, Loising tucking away and using the blue flags there, respecting the blue flags. As we see, we've got a Ferris there who's now starting to worry, I think, about the fact he's got the 2 race leaders coming through, and they're not going to want to wait for him, particularly Phillips. Phillips needs this, and we see Mesa going for the move. He looks to the inside into the old hairpin here. This could be the lead, but he's just not able to get enough alongside, and Phillips is pushing it to his boat. He must be screaming out right now, blue flags, as the Lamborghini in front of him. You can see he's flashing his lights right now, trying to send the message. Meanwhile, Prendergast, I should tell you, is still the best part of what is approximately 3 seconds down on the BMW ahead of him. In fact, he's 6 seconds down because of everything that happened. He's having to regain it right now. So Piringer is in a very strong position right now to potentially win this if our race leaders do not pit until the very end, and they still have quite a long pit stop. But you can see here, Phillips versus Mesa, they will not give up either of them, as we see the Lamborghini between them. That Lamborghini is not aware of the fact Mesa's trying to come through there. He's only let one through, and you can see Mesa is is feeling extremely inconvenienced by this as they make their way down, and Afeo, he needs to get out of the way because I think there's going to be a major word to the stewards here as he makes contact with the side panel there of Mason's car, and Mason will not be happy with that. He's just lost the best part of a second and a half to Phillips, who just simply not being allowed through, and I think he'll be saying to himself right now, why was the Bentley let through but not me, as they make their way through the corner. Now surely Mason's got to react to this. He's got to do something in order to be able to try and close back up, unless he's just going to push it once again here and absolutely turn it up a notch, which we wouldn't be surprised if the Spaniard does so here. But the more he pushes right now as we get closer and closer to the end, those tyres must be on a knife edge, as the same for Phillips right now. But Mesa are really falling foul of back markers as they make their way through turn 1 and down through the crane of curves once again. 8.5 minutes to go here. Place your bets, ladies and gentlemen. Who's it going to be? I can tell you right now, these two are running around on the circuit as rapidly as they possibly can right now, and they're still yet to pit, and we believe the pit time loss here is going to be the best part of around 15 to 20 seconds here. They're not taking tyres and literally just putting a quick splash and dash, but it may be a bit longer though. We're not too au fait with a pit time loss here. Meanwhile, it's Pieringer here in P3 right now. If he can pull this off, he's got Prendergast who's 4 seconds back and closing like a whirlwind here. But I mean, give you an idea, Prendergast in that last lap was a second faster once again, and Faulkner, now that the order's all sorted itself up, is up into P5 with Fox 4.6 seconds behind him in P6. Well, in fact, Fox is actually a little bit closer than that. My apologies. He's 3.5 seconds in that P6 position right now. Fox putting on a good display of pace right now, as he has got a sizable amount of space between himself and Cedaw, who is next to 9 seconds down on him in P7. But as we take a look in at you guys and girls in the chat, we see Kitty 90 there saying, forgot this was on tonight, have to stick to notifications on for you, Paul, not used to Twitch. That's no problem. Any of these guys on PS or Xbox tempted to get Assetto Corsa? This is all in PC, my friend. This is a PC racing series, but there are other ones for PlayStation 4 and Xbox. But as we focus back on the race leaders right now, you can see both Phillips and Mesa are flashing their lights like as if it's the 4th of July right now. If it's fireworks going off, they know they need every back marker to move out the way right now. Phillips in particular will want it simply because he can maintain that gap. Mesa wants it because you can see on that last lap, Andres Mesa was 3/10 of a second faster. It is the case that the Aston Martin driver is the faster of the two in that clear air. It's as soon as he gets behind that Bentley, that's when it falls apart. But he will need to push it right now, because he needs to be right there when that pit stop happens, because it will come down to the Jackmen being able to get that car sorted out as quickly as possible and turned around. I suspect it's going to be very quick pit stops from the pair of them right now as they make their way around the circuit once more, coming up towards turn number 8. And as they come surging through, we check in with our stewards once again here, and I think there's a lot of action going in the stewarding's box right now with regards to the instance with the back markers that happened for these two drivers in particular. Where is Prendergast in all of this? Well, he is now 4.2 seconds down on Pieringer here. He's still making his way through. In fact, he's now 3.5 seconds down as our time screen is updated for you there. He's got Blaine just ahead of him in P21 as all stands right now, and we can see in the battle for P9, meanwhile, we've got Kiena here in P9 being chased by Korowski in P10. Korowski with that 5-second time penalty now for Kiena. Having been in the situation myself, for Kiena, he doesn't need to fight this one too hard, because he knows so long as Korowski does not get 5 seconds ahead of him, he will take the position back come the end of the race. Jacqueline's the best part of 21 seconds up the road, so there's no chase for Jacqueline here, so he just needs to stay within 5 seconds of Korowski, and I do think it will be the case. As well, hold on a second, ladies and gentlemen, we cut away from the battle for P9. Mesa is into the pits. Mesa has come in. He is the first of those two to react. Now, where is he? He's just pulled into his pit box. Meanwhile, Pieringer is making his way right now through the Melbourne hairpin here. As we see in the rear of your picture, you've got Blaine there and Prendergast, who's getting ever closer. Prendergast is only 2 seconds down on him right now, and as they make their way through, what happens to Andres Mesa? You're probably wondering, well, we see Pieringer coming through, and Mesa, well, he's in the pits. So come on, cameraman, wheel it round, and he's coming out the pits here. So Mesa with a very short stop as we expected, and Pieringer's not close enough to capitalise on this and take the position. So Pieringer right now is up into P3 and holding on to it with the short stop of his own, but he wasn't fast enough to jump over Mesa. So Mesa comes back out in P2, and surely Phillips has got to respond immediately now with 5 minutes to go here. And Prendergast is now only 2.5 seconds down on the BMW driver and closing at 1.5 seconds a lap on Pieringer right now. Can he close down and get onto that podium? We will wait and see as we see both drivers here making their way through the old hairpin. 5 minutes remaining, and it is building up to something special here as we look around once again. And meanwhile, in that battle for P9, which we jumped away from briefly, as we see a stop and go 10-second penalty for Tolera there. I think Tolera really falling foul of the stewards every step of the way today. We see Kiena hold on versus Korowski there and not falling foul of the McLaren, who's going to try and get past him as quickly as possible and then try and get 5 seconds or more up the road here as they make their way through. Now, where is Harry Phillips? Well, Harry Phillips is into the pits. Now, this is critical. Where is Mesa in all this? He's making his way right now now up towards the Melbourne chicane. Now we would expect that Phillips will have a very quick stop here, much like Andres Mesa, but how quick will it be? How quickly can that Jack crew turn it around? And in fact, we jump to the helicam right now because this will give you an idea of where exactly the drivers are, as we see Mesa making his way through the final corner as he comes down towards what is the pit lane very shortly. Of course, he'll be coming across that timeline. We'll be looking at the pit lane as he makes his way down. Will Mesa take the lead as he comes across the line there? And it is the case, he takes the lead. Phillips with a long stop, and now it's Mesa up into the lead. The Spaniard takes the lead, and Phillips, well, he's in the pits. He's dropping down the order. We can see he's still in the pits there. This is going to release Piringer up into P2 and Prendergast up into P3 as Phillips is just coming out the pits right now, and I think he's gone for a tyre change. We'll wait and see, of course, as we can see that right now Prendergast up into that P3 position. And where's Faulkner in all of this? Well, Faulkner's coming out the final corner right now. Phillips is still in the pit lane. He's now making his way out. Harry Phillips has just emerged. He's emerged in P4. I think he's gone for a tyre change or put some fuel in the car here, but this is a shock to the system because he's come out very far behind. He's come out the best part of 10 to 15 seconds down on P3, and we can see Prendergast here. In fact, even further, he's come out the best part of about 16 to 17 seconds down. And Prendergast is trying to chase down Piringer with only 3 minutes of racing to go here. This will probably be the closest battle remaining in our top 10 as they make their way through turn at number 8 and head down towards the chicane once again. And we can see CJ Mac 92 there saying, let's go Mesa. And indeed, I think a lot of people right now, particularly in the Distinct GG team box right now in the pit lane, they will be absolutely screaming up and down, enjoying, hoping that Mesa can bring this one home right now, because it has been nose to tail throughout. And you can see just ahead, you've got Jacqueline and Monroe's there, but they're in 2 different laps, and there's not going to be any fighting between them, and they'll both have to move out the way in short order. And meanwhile, Prendergast, well, here he is. He is now only 1.5 seconds down on Piringer as they make their way up towards turn number 11 into the Goddard hairpin once again with 2.5 minutes remaining. It's 2 more laps of racing for these two, and Prendergast, each lap right now is 1 second faster. That time around, in fact, he wasn't as fast. He was only 7/10 of a second faster. I think Prendergast has taken a lot out the tyres to get to this point in the race. He is doing everything he can right now in order to be able to close up. As a little bit further back, we can hear there's a bit of a battle kicking off between, I believe, that's Chris Wall who's in the pits right now, so that's not a battle kicking off as our pit crew, well, sorry, our camera crew there turn it around, but we can see Chris Bell here. Well, he is completely out of the battling with people down in P27, but soldiering on to the very end, which is what we like to see. But Mesa right now holding on to that lead. He's only got 2 more minutes to go. He's just cleared Monroe. We're looking to clear Jacqueline very shortly, as we see Piringer meanwhile down in P2 here. He's got a 7/10 of a second advantage. It's going to be the final lap where it's going to be the BMW power versus the Italian stallion of that Ferrari as they make their way through turn number 8 once again, and it's going to be the BMW bulk that tries to hold on for all intents and purposes here as they make their way down to the chicane. And this is where the Ferrari will be very strong through the chicane as they make their way through. And you can see, look at the speed Prendergast is taking through the corner here as they make their way down. It's a long charge down towards Melbourne, and as they come up towards the hairpin here, we can see Piringer going defensive to the inside. He blocks Prendergast a time in, but Prendergast tucks right in behind as they make their way through the corner. We ride on board with the Ferrari driver here as they come around to go on to what will be the final lap. Mesa's going to come across that line very shortly to go on to his last lap. He's 5 seconds ahead, and he's completely turned the wick down. He is running roughly a second slower than these guys, if not 2 seconds slower than them. But as they go on to the final lap, it's Prendergast versus Piringer. Which one of them is going to come out on top? They're going to have a car coming out the pits there. That was Lara coming out, and we can see that Piringer really struggled to break. Oh, goodness me. You can see how Prendergast just gets it a little bit wrong, and the car goes onto the grass there. And it is the case that Prendergast, with one little under-anticipated moment there, has lost out to the chase to Piringer. Will Piringer now be able to bring it home, or will Prendergast be able to get him to make a mistake just through the pressure and come back? I think now it's Piringer's to lose here with only 1 lap remaining. 30 seconds on the clock. They will only get 51 laps, not 52nd. And as they make their way out of turn at number 7 right now, Piringer, as we see at Prendergast, they're absolutely flying right now, but he's not going to be able to get close enough. As we see our race leader making his way right now down towards the chicane. Further down, Harry Phillips in P4 right now. He's got a comfortable gap to Faulkner, and he's absolutely safe as they make their way through. Kieno's held on to P9 well ahead of Korowski, who's lost a place to Moss. But meanwhile, as he makes his way through Melbourne, he started on pole. He fell down the order after some early mistakes, but as he now surges up towards towards the final corner. You cannot fault the Spaniard. He has driven a brilliant race, and as he comes out the final corner, it will be Andres Mesa who comes around to take the win in race number 1 of season 2 of the European GT3 Series for NXTGEN Racing. A brilliant drive from the Spaniard, and one he will remember very well, as meanwhile Pieringer comes home in P2, holding off Prendergast in the end. Prendergast, it wasn't to be his day today, but still on the podium. A good drive from Prendergast, if only he hadn't made that one mistake when it mattered most. And then as Phillips comes around through the final corner, he will come home, the Cohesion Simsport driver in P4. A difficult day at the races for him with that pit stop, but otherwise it was going perfectly all the same for the Bentley driver, and we've definitely got a lot of expectations for him going forward. And Faulkner in the end will round off his debut in this season of the series with a P5. A good start for Faulkner as Fox was catching him, comes home in P6. Then we have got Lucas Cedaw here, who as he makes his way out the final corner, the driver who we saw earlier go for a very late pit stop, brings it home in P7. He will be very pleased with that one, the Polish driver. And then in P8, as they make their way around right now, it's Andrzej Jacklin who's come home in P8. He's a lap down. Fabio Chiena in P9. And then rounding off our top 10 as the cameraman decides to pan around there, it is Ollie Moss there who brings it home. And I believe with that 10-second penalty, he has held on to what is that P10 position. And it was Daniel Korowski who also had a 5-second penalty, and I think he's held on to that as well in P11. But that's our top 10 plus 1. The field gets a little bit mixed after that, as we see our drivers right now going down on their warm down lap. How I would love to be in the cockpit of Mesa's car right now. He must be absolutely bouncing on that team radio in that Vantage. A brilliant drive from the Spaniard through and through here, and it just goes to show you just how much pressure you can leverage in the end. And whilst he made mistakes early on, he bounced back. Meanwhile for Pieringer, finishing in P2, I think it might be a little bit of a surprise to Pieringer. Perhaps he was thinking he was going to finish P3 in the end, were the fact that we did see Phillips running up there, but the long pit stop from Phillips in the end costing him that ability. But Pieringer will be very pleased with that, and we're going to hear the thoughts of our top 2 plus this man as well, Prendergast, in our post-race podium interviews very shortly, as we do see the Ferrari driver right now coming home. We will very shortly be bringing you those interviews, ladies and gentlemen, but just wait 4 to 5 minutes and then we'll have them coming right up. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let's get underway with our post-race interviews, and we'll be kicking off with our race winner, that's Andres Mesa from Spain. Hello Andres, can you hear me?
Yes, I can, yeah.
Andres, congratulations on taking the win in race number 1 of the series. How does it feel to have taken the win?
Thank you very much. It feels great, yeah. It feels awesome.
It looked like it was a very difficult race out there for you, qualifying on pole with a phenomenal qualifying lap. Just take us through that in the qualifying session because you seemed untouchable.
Well, I don't know. I think I got to put a good lap in, yeah.
And then translating it through into the race, and it was a difficult start for yourself, dropping down to, I think it was P4 after the first 5 to 6 laps?
Yes, indeed. I did struggle at the beginning a lot. I mean, I'm not sure if it's because I was with more fuel or what than the other guys, but yeah. I had some patience. I wasn't too worried about it. I knew it was going to be a long fight.
Well, when with regards to the patience, it definitely showed, particularly when you were battling with Harry Phillips constantly on his back for the best part of 60 plus minutes of racing. Just take us through that, how close you were running to the back of his Bentley. What was it like in that cockpit?
It was good, quite intense, yeah. Quite intense. I mean, it was really difficult to pass without him making a mistake. It was very difficult. We came very close a couple of times, but he was very fair as well driving.
Oh, most definitely. Throughout, you two were literally neck and neck. The pace was extreme, but we could see every time you fell back from Harry, it was almost as if you just gained 2 to 3 attempts, and it was when you got close, he just seemed to be able to take the pace out the car. Do you expect that Harry might be your main rival for this championship, given how close you two were racing?
Surely he's gonna be up there, that's for sure. I think he made a big mistake in the pits because he disappeared.
Yes, so we are hearing, he's let us know on the YouTube chat that he's massively disappointed his pit stop ruined the race for him because he couldn't toggle off the tyre change. Otherwise, he would not have taken those tyres on, and that's why he disappeared down the order. It was a miscommunication in the pits.
Yeah. Very unlucky for him, but he's definitely going to be there. He's going to be a contender, yeah, for this championship.
Oh, most definitely. And now looking from today with a brilliant result, and you've got the momentum behind you, what are your expectations going to the Belgian circuit of Zolder in a week's time?
Well, I'm not sure, to be honest. I like Zolder quite a lot, and I expect to be up front. I'm not going to win every race, obviously. That's impossible. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Oh, very true, but congratulations once again, and we look forward to seeing you out on circuit in a week's time.
Cheers, thank you very much.
Well, they're hearing from Andres Mesa, very happy with his performance there. I think just a little bit perhaps startled with regards to how rapid he was over the course of the race and taking that pole position, of course, but a phenomenal performance all the same. And now it's only appropriate that very shortly we'll be bringing in our P2 finisher there of what will be Ralph Pringer for his interview. So give us a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, and we will get him sorted. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, sorry, just a little bit of a slight technical issue there, but we have now got Ralph Pringer coming up for his post-race interview. Hello, Ralph, can you hear me?
Yes, hello.
Ralph, congratulations on P2 in the season opener at Donington. How do you feel?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a very tough race for me and Max. Max had to stop the car very early in the race, so it wasn't that lucky. But I had a decent start with some positions gained at the beginning, and then I put on the strategy to fuel up the car to the maximum, and then just take a very short stop. Unfortunately, I fueled up the car too much at the pit stop, so it could have been better, or it could have been more efficient. And then I lost around, I think, 3 seconds to Andres. In the end, there were 6 seconds between us, so I could have done it, but it would have been difficult at all. And so I'm very glad to be in P2 for the first race. I'm not very experienced in the BMW, and I don't think that the BMW is the most balanced car here in the field, especially Donington. I think it fitted quite well, but not perfectly. And so I'm happy at all. It's not P1, but for the start, P2 is great for me and for our team, and a good start for us.
Oh, well, most definitely. I mean, if you were to have said all that to me before we went racing, I wouldn't believe you in all honesty, because you were right there with the leaders after lap 1. I mean, you were down in P4 but showing very good pace. I mean, you sure we got the right person here? Because saying you're inexperienced in the BMW M6 and staying right there in the fight to the very end?
I think with the M6, it's difficult to do the turns. It's the car got a lot of power, but in the corners it's not that great. I'm very experienced in the Audi R8, but not in the BMW. And yes, for the beginning, it's good, and I feel good, and I think we can achieve some good results in this season, and I'm looking forward to the next race.
But I do have to ask you one question. On the final couple of laps, Prendergast catching up to you very rapidly, and then on that last lap at turn 1, when you seem to just go a little bit deep on the brakes into turn 1, and Prendergast, I think, carried too much momentum towards the back of you. What was going through your mind in that moment? Because surely he must have been there right in your mirror, and you must have been thinking, oh God, here he comes.
Yeah, the Ferrari is a very strong car. It's much lighter, and it's got much more aerodynamics than the BMW. I had some problems with my left rear tire for the pressure, so I had not that traction that I wanted. And then there was the car exiting pit lane, and I think that helped me a little bit. And of course, I took the inner line to defend from the Ferrari, and in the end he was very close at the apex, and then he couldn't steer the car right and lost it on the curb, and yes, that helped me to get the P2. But in the end, you have to say the Ferrari was very strong. The Aston Martin is also a very balanced car in Assetto Corsa Competizione, and so with the BMW for the first race, we didn't quite have the preparation that we wanted to. We drove a few laps, and the setup wasn't perfect. So yeah, in the end, I just have to be happy, and big congrats to Andres and to the Ferrari driver. I'm not that good with the names yet, but I think I can improve with this as well. And very happy, and happy to be here.
Oh, that's brilliant to hear. And then the last question we have to ask, heading to the Belgian circuit of Zolder in a week's time, what are your expectations?
Well, I had a very good race in a championship earlier before at Zolder. I was happy with my pace. I think it can be, when you start in a new season in a new league, you don't know where you stand. But I think with P2 in the first race, you just can improve a little bit, but you won't fall off that much. So Zolder is a very tight circuit. The BMW, I would say the BMW fits to Monza and to faster tracks. So it will be difficult, especially against the Ferrari or against a very strong McLaren. But something like this, or maybe a position near the podium would be great. But I didn't expect this P2 today, so yeah, we will see what Zolder brings to us.
Well, we look forward to seeing what you're able to achieve in a week's time, but until then, congratulations on the second place, enjoy it, and have a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Alrighty then, ladies and gentlemen, you can hear there the shock in Piringa's voice, particularly with the fact that Ralph not expecting to get the result, but it worked out fantastically in the end, and underselling himself a bit there, particularly with regards to the experience of the BMW M6 and also the time to practice. But to be fair, with the practice he had and just putting in that solid performance, you can't doubt the P2. Obviously, a bit of fortune there with Harry Phillips having the long pit stop with regards to having those tyres put on when he didn't require those tyres to be put on, in his own words, as we heard in the YouTube chat there. So as a result, Piringa promoted to that P2 in the end, but sometimes that's the way the fortune of the racing gods play out. And speaking of from one set of racing gods to another, let's have a chat to Kieran Prendergast, who finished in P3 with that unfortunate ending where he just went a little bit too close to the rear of the BMW. Hello Kieran, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. How are you doing?
Not too bad, thank you. How about yourself?
I'm a bit gutted, but you know, I'm happy at the same time. I guess that I got a podium in the end. But
well, I've got to say, congratulations on the third place. I appreciate it. Probably wasn't the result you wanted, but just taking it a step back, a good race start from yourself, got yourself up into the lead, but you seem to just struggle to break away from the pursuit of Harry Phillips and also Andreas Mesa and Piringa as well in the BMW.
Yeah, it was the nerves, to be honest. Nerves got the better of me in the first couple laps and stuff, but when I got into my groove a bit, I started to pull away and gained a bit more confidence within the car and stuff as well. But I mean, Mesa, Harry Phillips and also Piringa, they've done really well to keep up and put me under pressure as well. The strategy didn't go to plan, but it's just one of those things, isn't it? It's racing.
Indeed. With regards to the strategy, we anticipated the idea was because you pitted quite early was to put on a fresh set of tyres and essentially put in qualifying laps to the rest of the race. Was that the intention, or did it go wrong with regards to what you planned to do in the pits?
I actually thought changing the tyres sort of midway through the race would have been the sort of strategy everyone else would have went on. But when I saw Piringa come out in front of me, I was like, he hasn't changed tyres. I need to start pushing now. Like, I need to start setting in quali laps. And I was just, I mean, I just wanted to get through the pack as quickly as possible and stuff. But I mean, when I look back on it now, I wish I kind of didn't change tyres and stuff. But I mean, hey, what can I do? It's racing.
Indeed, and I hate to bring this up because it's probably a moment where you might have been thrown a few adult words which our viewers may not be too keen on, but the moment when you had to essentially pass, I think it was 4 back markers, 2 of them 2 laps down, 2 of them 1 lap down, all of them trying to get past one another in the sequence of blue flags, and you got stuck right in the middle of it when you were only, I think at the time, you were 2 seconds off of Piringa and closing like a missile. Just take us what was going through your mind at that point.
Well, I was getting through the pack as quickly as possible, really. I mean, the blue flags and stuff, I wish the drivers could have got out of the way sooner, but I can understand that obviously they're in the battle themselves and whatnot, so it kind of makes sense that they weren't really paying attention to the cars behind. But I mean, I just wanted to get through the pack as quickly as possible and so that I could, close the gap on Piringa as well. But yeah, it was tough. It was really tough.
And then when you got to the back of Piringa, that one moment into turn 1 on the final lap, just take us through that. 'Cause we've heard from Piringa what happened, but from your perspective,
he done really well. To be fair, he threw me off completely. He parked the car on the apex, and obviously it seemed I think there was a back marker coming out the pit lane, and I couldn't really take the line that I wanted going through turn 1, so it was quite tight as it is. But we're both in the same boat. But what he done is he parked the car on the apex, and it sort of unsettled me for the exit, meaning that I'd run wide, and I was too hasty on the throttle as well, and I nearly lost it effectively. But Yeah, I was a bit gutted about that because I thought, if I put a bit more pressure on him for this first, second, and last sector, then he might perhaps make a mistake behind the back marker or in the chicane and capitalize on him there. But yeah, it's one of those things, isn't it?
Indeed, but on a brighter note, in a week's time we head to the Belgian circuit of Zolder. What are you expecting at the circuit?
Redemption. I'm hoping that I can carry on this same sort of pace and form, and try to do his better and have a better strategy next time as well.
Well, we look forward to seeing you at the Belgian circuit, but until then, congratulations on the P3. Appreciate it wasn't what you wanted today, but upwards and onwards to the next one.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
All the best. Well, hearing there from Kieran Prendergast, very disappointed in some ways with regards to the result, in other ways fortunate with regards to the mistake towards the end with regards to not losing the car and keeping it there for the P3. But again, I think a day of a missed opportunity for our P3 man, and we can expect him to bounce back at the next round. As you heard in there, the one word, redemption. He wants to turn it around and prove that he can be right up there come the next race, be the winner. But with that, it's time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. And if you do want to know more about the Next Gen Racing community, why not check us out at our official website, that's nextgenracing.co.uk. Alternatively, the Next Gen Racing Facebook group, that is facebook.com/groups/nextgenracing. I'd also like to say a quick big thank you to our partners, the SimGrid, so thesimgrid.com, and Coach Dave Academy at coachdaveacademy.com for supporting us, without whom this series would not be possible, and we really do appreciate having them on board. And also a quick thank you to you guys and girls for your patience tonight. I know we were delayed by the best part of 25 minutes, but in the end we managed to make it and we made the racing, and next time round we will be heading to the Belgian circuit of Zolder in a week's time. Come back same time or a little bit earlier, in fact, when we hopefully don't have those technical issues. We'll be going racing on September the 14th at Zolder for what should be some very fast and frantic racing action. But until then, I have been Paul TX141 Walsh, also known as Britain a Spit, depending on what media you follow me on. We have been at Next Gen Racing. This has been the European GT3 Series Season 2 2021. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay smiling, stay positive, but most importantly, remember to stay on track. Good night.